Pirates Fire Dragon Roar Chapter 461 to 480. Chapter 461 Howling. Vlad was a little surprised. One hand was tearing at his face, and there was no power. Vlad could smell the strong smell of blood, which is of course, because the owner of this hand is now covered with blood. It is estimated that there must be a big bowl of blood flowing from his mouth. What a tenacious guy. Vlad couldn't help but think that even though he already understood the gap in strength between the enemy and us, he would not give up and still dare to charge his opponent. Should such a mentality be praised or not? Critical. Vlad's thinking has even diverged to such a point that he launches an attack on an opponent he absolutely cannot win. Is this approach good or bad? Honestly, this is really stupid. Death is the most horrible thing in the world. It takes everything, no matter how noble a person is. No matter how powerful he has, no matter what he has acquired, no matter what kind of wealth he has, as long as death comes, everything will leave him. This is really a simple truth. And behavior like the straw hat is courting death. It is the most stupid behavior. Everyone knows that it is really stupid to seek death, so stupid. Vlad threw the straw hat aside and said so, but in fact he had a smile on his face. How stupid. Straw hat. But he didn't hate such stupidity. If this man is his partner, Vlad thinks so, if he is this guy's partner, and in order to protect himself, this man is willing to bet everything on him. If that's the case, this guy is not very good. Vlad really hated such a guy. Cough cough. With some difficulty retracting his hands rested on the ground, and the straw hat tried to stand up again. Splash. However, he didn't do such a thing. The man slipped his hand and fell to the ground weakly, lying on the ground gasping for breath. To be honest, when he fought Enel before, the man didn't keep his hand, and wrapped his arms around him. Hockey's blow slammed heavily on the head, and there is no need to say what kind of damage it will cause, and then he was beaten by Wapa again, and finally he directly hit a monster like Vlad. His physical strength has long been exhausted. Overdrafted. Oh, Tilda finally can't get up. Vlad smiled and took 2 steps forward, looking down at the straw hat. Really, you are obviously weak, but you are more difficult than many opponents I have met in the past. Yeah. Vlad raised his eyebrows, and a hand mixed with blood had quietly grabbed his ankle. Do you want to continue? Bring it, Robin. Vlad saw it. The man turned his head with great effort, and his whole body was trembling even if he turned his head. But the guy turned his head desperately, his eyes fixed on his own eyes. The eyes, there is not the slightest cowardice in him. Some are just firm, as if, now he is not knocked to the ground by himself, but he is the victor. Really, how? What a beautiful look. Manly spirit, but that's it. Give it back to me. Really? Vlad was startled. What am I doing? Ooh ha 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 ha, ooh ha 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 ha, what the hell am I doing? Isn't this stupid? Vlad suddenly laughed, shaking his feet lightly and breaking away from the straw hat's hand. He suddenly felt very funny, thought he was funny. Really, Vlad, what are you doing, you idiot? Not long ago. Do you know what this man looks like? Ah ha ha, isn't this something I already knew? So what are you expecting? Have you bet everything for your partner? Such a spirit. Vlad put away the smile on his face and said solemnly, I'll admit it. Straw Hat Luffy, you guy, is indeed an amazing man. He can be called an opponent by me, my fire dragon Vlad. Man. So. There. The flames soared into the sky. Vlad's arm was completely covered with scales. The flames soared into the sky. He smiled, let me give you a serious death. I won't underestimate you anymore. Vlad admits that he really has the mentality of showing off in front of the straw hat. It is indeed a great feeling that the original protagonist is blown away by himself. However, this kind of mentality is not what Vlad should have. To fail without being discouraged, to win without being humiliated, this is the attitude that a king should have. So because the other party is special, he will have a sense of accomplishment because of the abuse of vegetables. So, isn't it too ugly? So. Vlad stretched out his right hand to the straw hat. The flames began to gather in his palm, and an extremely bright fireball appeared in his hand. Is there anything else you want to say? Monkey. D. Luffy, at the end of life, still is there anything you want to say? Since he is an approved opponent, there is no such thing as showing mercy. Even if this man is his ally, Dragon's son, even if he is the younger brother of Sabo, his benefactor, even if he has promised Sabo to let him cry and thank him, even if it is like this, if the opponent is to be completely defeated, isn't this a matter of course? Ferdinando Vlad, now I just want to kill this noble man in front of me. Any stay is just an insult. Robin. Even if the body is completely overdrawn, it stands to reason that this man will no longer have the strength to stand up. However, this man still stands up, the body is overdrawn, and the spirit is broken, but as long as the heart is still beating, the pursuit will not stop. It's my partner. Give her back to me. Okay, then all. Enough, 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 enough. Just when Vlad wanted to say something, a sudden scream interrupted his words. Vlad turned his head and looked to the side, quietly watching the woman he was fighting with the straw hat fell to the ground. When, tears had filled her cheeks. Enough, enough, enough. Why? Vlad swore that he never thought this woman would be so out of control. Why? Why did this for someone like me? I'm the son of the devil, the one cursed by the world. Stay with me. People will only be hurt. I will not trust anyone, and no one will believe me. I am a woman who treats betrayal as simple as eating and drinking, and I am on your boat just to protect myself and only. But for your information, I'll be betraying you soon. Guys like me, guys like me. Under Vlad's gaze, the woman cried hoarsely, why are you so obsessed with me? Why are you doing this for me? Are you all idiots? Because, Robin is, mate. The man's voice was very soft, but it was getting louder and louder. At the end, it was a cry of strength, and it was already a declaration resounding through the sky, because, Robin is my partner. Quote. After the age of 8, the woman who had never felt the warmth again widened her eyes, and then. Whoa. It was like crying like a child. Who would have thought that this 28-year-old beauty would have a time when her crying face was a mess? Chapter 462 Call. Vlad pulled the corners of his mouth and let out a slow breath, smiled. Really, what a touching scene this is. I'm a little moved. I have to admit that there are such people in the world who are willing to risk their lives for the sake of people who have only known each other for a while. Although such a guy sounds stupid, the world is really yes, there is such a guy. X23 US. Com updates fastest. Such a guy, although very stupid, but every such person is a great guy. In this sea, every such a fool will be a guy who can make people admire and set off a frenzy on the sea. Vlad never doubt that. This is also a matter of course. Such a man, when he is betting everything for others, others will of course be willing to sacrifice everything for him. The most sturdy, tenacious, and the most powerful team is formed like this, willingly for their own partners. How can a team that sacrifices everything be weak? Robin, it's my buddy. The man who had exhausted all his physical strength just by standing said loudly, give her back to me. Really, an amazing fellow. Vlad said, how dare you roar at an opponent you absolutely can't match under such circumstances. Hey, that's funny, Straw Hat, since you've already announced your parting words, then. Vlad raised his hand, and the fiery fireball was beating in his palm, which was very strange and did not escape the slightest temperature. Although the Jurong mode was not turned on, Vlad did not leave his hand in this blow. Is an attack that can easily burn Straw Hats to ashes. Just, see you later. Vlad said with such a light smile, all the plot, human feelings, and bullshit have been left behind, and he just wanted to kill this guy. Stop. The woman suddenly sounded with a crying voice. Yeah. Vlad raised his eyebrows and looked at the woman with open hands, blocking in front of him, with the straw hat behind him, a little surprised. Hey, what are you doing? Miss Robin. Stop. Although the woman in front of her was full of tears, her red and swollen eyes were full of determination. Don't hurt Luffy. Fire Dragon, let him go. Yeah, did I hear it wrong? Vlad scratched his ear with his spare left hand, looking in disbelief. Am I hearing it wrong? Hey, Nico Robin, what are you talking about? Vlad grinned and said, are you here, ordering me? Call. Carrara. The wild momentum roared out, and the solid ground even had cracks spreading. At this moment, the sun hanging high in the sky was also pale under the man's aura. Bang! Under the impact of Vlad's conqueror, the straw hat, which had already reached its physical and mental limit, finally couldn't support it any longer, and fell to the ground with his back to the sky. Ah! The woman's knees softened, and she could no longer stand her body. She fell to the ground, her face turned pale, and just a few seconds seemed to her like centuries had passed, as if she was swayed by the whole world. In response, an indescribable terror filled his heart, as if he had fallen into the sea. The air around him instantly turned into a liquid, and he couldn't breathe at all. Hoo. Fortunately, such a terrifying feeling was only fleeting. Nico Robin was breathing heavily, her extremely beautiful face was full of horror, and she absolutely did not want to feel it a second time. Please. Covering her high chest with her hands, the woman barely raised her head and whispered, please, let Luffy go. Hello, woman. Vlad frowned. Have you misunderstood me a bit? Take me for a good-natured man. You have not finished lying to me. Are you coming to make me angry again? Do you really think I won't be angry? I can help you. Nicole Robin said, I can give you all the knowledge of ancient writing that I know, and even if you are still angry that I lied to you, I can give you my life, as long as you spare the Straw Hat Pirates. Neat. Vlad Vivi narrowed his eyes, pondering the woman's request. Anyway, they're just a bunch of unimportant little pirates. For you, they're just boring and having fun. There's no need to kill them, right? Under the extreme pressure, the woman regained her composure, and she spoke in a well-organized manner. Anyway, the fun has been recruited enough. The pirate group has been humiliated to such a degree that if they continue to kill them, there will be no problem. Is there any extra fun? Letting them go isn't something you can't do, right? Oh is that so? Vlad smiled. Are you threatening me? If I don't let them go, you'll die and give me what I want. Hey, Nico Robin, you have the guts. Threats? No, I just want to make a deal with you. Nico Robin was calm and unmoved by Vlad's words. You want to get the information of ancient texts, and I also want to let the Straw Hat Pirates leave Sky Island alive. Isn't this a win-win situation? Ah. Vlad laughed loudly. That's true. Hee, the rumored son of the devil, Nico Robin, actually bet everything for a group of pirates. It's really interesting. Sure enough, that sentence is right. No matter who it is, there will always be a partner who can entrust life and death on the sea. Quote. The woman didn't speak, but there was a ripple in her eyes. She finally remembered something and someone. Indeed, Nicole Robin, it's a win-win deal, and I really have no reason to reject it. If you just said that, I'd definitely agree to it without a word. Vlad changed his words, but, that was just now, and it's different now. What? Nico Robin was amazed. Because Vlad said, that man is now my opponent. Since he is an opponent, do you want me to be merciful to him for such bullshit reasons? Stop joking. Stupid, you think, you are who is it? Indeed, the knowledge of ancient scripts is what Vlad urgently needs. Although he already has a deep understanding, he is extremely weak in grammar. This is equivalent to holding a dictionary and trying to translate foreign documents. For things that cannot be done, Nico Robin's knowledge is extremely important, but this is not the reason why Nico Robin can blackmail him. Just kidding. Indeed, Nicole Robin is the last known person who can read the text of history. Without her, Vlad wouldn't be able to get on Laugh Tale, be a one-piece king of pirates. But don't forget, there are still a few guys on the sea who have gone to Laugh Tale. But don't forget, the ancient texts were destroyed by the government. The ghost knows if they have backups. Although it will be more trouble, Vlad doesn't care about trouble. How? The woman's pupils lost focus in an instant, and he knew that Vlad was serious. Captain, I think it is necessary to slow down. Suddenly, a woman's voice came over. Someone is calling. Mr. Vlad, I have a request. A very familiar man's voice. Really? Vlad turned his head, looking a little unhappy. The news is really well informed. Chapter 463 So-Called Father. Mr. Vlad, Straw Hat Luffy, is it already in your territory? That legendary Sky Island. This voice came from the other side of the phone. X23 US. Com updates fastest. It's not bad, the news is really well informed. Do you even know about me in Sky Island? Vlad held a phone bug in his hand. His expression was not very good. Mr. Long, is the Revolutionary Army really so powerful? Hee, it's just speculation through some things. The other end of the phone, Dragon smiled very gently, and didn't pay much attention to Vlad's somewhat annoyed tone. After all, Mr. Vlad didn't hide his whereabouts, just pay a little attention and want to speculate. It is not difficult to get out of your place. Quote. Cut. Vlad scolded a little unhappily. An organization like the Revolutionary Army that is determined to overthrow the government is really powerful. These guys are really different from the pirates and even the four emperors. Of course, Dragon called for straw hats. Straw hats. Going to Sky Island is no secret news, of course Dragon will know. Since the Revolutionary Army already knew that he was on Sky Island, that is to say, of course those guys in the government also knew about it, right? So Vlad is very upset. Mystery is always good. It's better to be unclear than to be known clearly, but it doesn't matter. After all, in places like Sky Island, the government, what can you do even if you know? They don't have a big ship like the Platinum D-Drag, and they can fly freely in the sky. Even if they know that Uncle Vlad is on Sky Island, they can only look at the sky and sigh. So, Mr. Long. Vlad said, calling here on purpose, for what? For the straw hat. It's a somewhat excessive request. There was a hint of embarrassment in Dragon's tone, but I hope you will promise me. Really? Vlad twitched the corners of his mouth. Do you still want me to promise you after knowing the result? It's really arrogant, Mr. Long. You make it difficult for me to do this. Straw Hat Luffy, full name is Monkey D. Luffy. Dragon said to himself, my name is Dragon, Monkey D. Dragon, so my actions are natural. Hey. Vlad looked startled. This is really big news. Is Luffy the Straw Hat Luffy the son of the leader of the Revolutionary Army? It was so much fun. Quote. That's right, so, Mr. Vlad. The dragon's voice is as soft as ever, without the slightest bit of arrogance. Just listening to the voice will make people feel good. He is worthy of being the commander-in-chief of the Revolutionary Army. As a father, I have not done my duty at all, because I can't let the Revolutionary Army, let me and the dreams of my comrades be affected by his actions, because of my personal affairs, but I also hope that Luffy, that kid, can sail freely on the sea. As a father, what must he do for his child? Quote. Vlad was suddenly silent. Mr. Vlad, if Luffy has offended you in any way. Vlad heard Dragon say, he's very stubborn and doesn't know how to work around it, so as a father, I apologize to you on his behalf. I'm so sorry, Mr. Vlad. Please, be sure to forgive him. Me tilde. Vlad lowered his eyes. His eyes were a little strange, and he could hear that on the other side of the phone, the guy who was one of the most powerful men in the world was sincerely apologizing for his child, even if he didn't know it. Have your children made mistakes and are so vulnerable? Vlad would never have imagined that the commander-in-chief of the dignified Revolutionary Army would have such a time. Really, is this the fatherly love of the commander-in-chief of the Revolutionary Army? Really, it's a little touching. But, Mr. Dragon, why do you think there will be a conflict between me and the Straw Hat? Quote. I don't know. In fact, I'm not very clear. I instinctively thought that you might be opponents. Maybe this is my father's intuition. Dragon was silent for a while, then said softly, that kid, I was a little overwhelmed by the inadvertent arrival. When I saw that little thing for the first time, even I didn't dare to reach out and touch him, that's all. Think, this little thing is the continuation of my life in this world. It was a little meat dumpling not long ago, but now it is a rookie pirate active in the sea, that boy. Quote. Vlad smiled and said softly, "You are a good father, Mr. Long." "How come?" Dragon sighed a little. "How can someone like me be a good father? He has never been by that kid's side, and he doesn't even know there is a father like me." No, already. Well, you are already a good father. No doubt about it. Vlad said solemnly, "So, well, indeed, I'm about to kill the Straw Hat now, but, Mr. Long, I'll give you a chance. Impress me, put out your conditions, let me change your mind. If I can't refuse your terms, putting on a straw hat is not something I can't do." "Really?" Dragon's voice sounded excited. "That's great, Mr. Vlad." "Don't worry, Mr. Long," Vlad said, "let's put forward the conditions that can make me tempted. The portion must be enough. My appetite is quite large." "Conditions, of course we also have conditions that can definitely make you tempted," Dragon said with confidence. "For example, the whereabouts of the historical text of all 4 road signs. Are you interested in this?" "Yeah, Tilda." Vlad's eyes lit up. "What a surprise. I can't refuse. Dash. In the bright hall, a group of people from the Fire Dragon Pirates were sitting around a long table. After a little relaxation, the group was now having a meeting. Vlad was very curious, and after everyone reported the victory, his curiosity suddenly rose. "It's about the maid. Her opponent is still alive. This woman is not such a kind person. It is because of this that Vlad is very curious." Didn't kill him, maid?" Vlad turned his head and asked, "I thought you were going to kill him outright." "Well." The maid flicked the cigarette ash and said casually, "He's a guy you can't hate, but I didn't show mercy. After a stab in the chest, I made up for it, and he still hasn't died. But it doesn't matter. If you don't make up the knife, it's already showing mercy to you." Vlad said, "It's hard for me to imagine that such a weak enemy can survive from your hands." The maid ignored Vlad and continued to vomit. "So, Captain." Beside Vlad, Enel looked lazily, "What do you want to do with us? In other words, I'm just curious, why did you deliberately leave those guys alive? Wouldn't it be great to just kill them?" "Well, I thought so too." Vlad spread his hands, "But suddenly a guy gave me an irresistible reason to let them go. I'm a little hesitant. I want to ask for your opinion." "That's it." The chef on the side smiled. "Personally, of course I hope to let Sanji go, but of course it's up to you, Captain. I just need to execute it." The chef is right. Maid exhaled a breath of smoke. "You're the captain, you can make a decision about anything. We all believe that you will lead us to a bright future, but for reference, that long nose is a good guy, so, I think, kill them." "Well," Sakata agreed, "although he is a good swordsman, if he is our enemy." "That's it." Vlad smiled. "Do you all think so?" Haha, sure enough, you also think that group of people are not simple guys, right? So, Vlad finally made a final decision, "Then let them go." "But you can't let them go. Hey, before letting them go, let's play a game with them at the end." "Really good," Enel said. "Captain, since you already think those guys are a bunch of potential guys, is it really okay to let them go?" "It's okay." Vlad smiled. "If you didn't kill them this time, then next time will be better. It's not a pity, we will fight again. On the way to the throne, those guys will still stand in our way. Yes, this way, it will be more interesting and maybe." Chapter 464 Dispose of Judge. "So, say it's asking for our opinion." The maid pulled the corners of her mouth and showed a cold smile, as the results still decided a long time ago. Of course, if Vlad was really hesitant to ask for their opinions, of course it wouldn't be so easy to make a decision. Since he made such a decisive decision, of course, it was because he had already made a decision in his heart. X23 US. Com updates fastest. Woo ha ha. Vlad scratched his head a little embarrassedly. I've said it before, someone gave me a bargaining chip that I couldn't refuse and let us put straw hats, and they all said that we couldn't refuse. So what's the point of having us meet? Mr. Ship Doctor, Luo asked speechlessly. Of course it's a bit more democratic. Vlad spread his hands. I thought you would sympathize with your opponents and want to let them go, but in the end, you disappointed me. Really disappointed? Miss Musician laughed softly. I think you're very satisfied with us, Captain. Perhaps. Vlad smiled. That's the end of this topic, so that's the Straw Hat's opinion. Then, let's move on to the second issue. Hee hee. Enel on the side smiled. Hee hee. I'm looking forward to this item. Really? Vlad responded with a bright smile. Me too. Woo ha ha. Then, let's bring our protagonist up. Vlad said so. Squeak. The door was pushed open, and two divine soldiers walked in with a man sandwiched between them, bowing respectfully to Vlad and the others. Put it there. Vlad put his face on his hands and smiled. Don't be too polite, this gentleman is not a guest now. Yes. Without the slightest hesitation, the divine soldiers threw the guy they were holding onto the ground. Crack. The head landed on the hard ground with a crisp sound, and Vlad also saw the guy's head jumping on the ground naughty twice. Me. After such stimulation, the sleepy man finally regained consciousness. First, he made a somewhat painful sound, then opened his bruised eyes and looked around in a trance. Oh, look, our Mr. Judge has woken up. Vlad exclaimed loudly, as if it was a very encouraging thing for Judge to wake up. Lying on the ground, Judge only felt that there was no part of his body that was not in pain. He had broken a large piece of bone. He couldn't even sit up and turn his head. Is life a little tough? It's not in vain that I specially asked the doctor to treat you. If it really died like this, it would be a pity, right? Vlad said, after all, you are such an excellent scientist, and I haven't punished you yet. How can I let you die so easily? But speaking of it, your hand is too heavy, isn't it? Vlad turned his head to Paso and said, it almost killed him. Quote. Silence, silence. Forget it. Vlad slapped himself on the forehead, and he was stupid again. I remembered what happened before, because my emotions were a little out of control, so I vented at the scientist of the Fire Dragon Pirates. As a result, the guy stabbed himself in the body, and immediately achieved the goal from the slender scientist to the muscle. The transformation of Ben Zhang's devilish muscle man, waving a huge fist and beating himself violently, he was attacked like this without a battle suit, and he really almost died. So, Mr. Judge. Vlad smiled, it's so naughty, it's hard for me to do such a thing. Fire Dragon. A very low voice came out of Judge's mouth, and he looked weak, as if he would hang up at any time, but this did not affect Vlad's ability to hear the extreme anger in his voice. Don't be angry, don't be angry. Vlad's smile cooled down, isn't it me who should be angry? Mr. Judge, am I the one who should be angry? Really, I really want to burn you to ashes with just such a fire right now. Judge was forcibly arrested from the beginning, what else did the pirates say? Betrayal is betrayal. Then, come on. Judge said so, with a strong sense of self-defeating in his words. Well, although I really wanted to kill you directly at the beginning, but Mr. Judge, remember. I said at the time, I will forgive you once, so even if I really want to kill you directly now, I will still forgive you once. Vlad said, how, am I being merciful? But Mr. Judge, only this time. My magnanimity is limited. If there's another time, I won't hesitate to kill you. I don't need your mercy. Judge is more resolute than expected. Really? Vlad smiled, but if you die, the rest of the Vinsmoke family are useless to me, so I can only. Fire Dragon. Even though he suffered fatal injuries, this man could still shout in such a heart-piercing voice, but in his extremely angry tone, he was completely helpless. "Don't yell, Mr. Judge." Vlad smiled. "Your physical condition is not optimistic. If you continue to get emotional like this, you might die directly." "Well, but this body is already fragmented anyway, so, in order for you to continue to serve me, I deliberately found a new body for you." Quote. Judge's eyes widened, not knowing what Vlad meant. "Captain God." Vlad shouted out, "What do I want? Bring me in, please." "Yes." Some low male voices came from outside, and the man walked in holding a large cage. Inside the cage, a gorilla was baring its teeth, and some cloudy eyes were looking around unscrupulously. "Da." Wapa put the cage on the ground, bowed to Vlad, and backed away. "Wait, what do you want?" Judge's heart skipped a beat. "What to do?" "Do what?" Vlad smiled. "Didn't I say so? I found a new body for you on purpose." "What?" Judge paled in shock. "Please, doctor." Vlad turned his head and said, "I can give it to you." "Of course." Luo stood up and chuckled, "Or should I say, it's extremely simple." Room. Quote. The translucent space instantly enveloped the surrounding space. Luo stretched out his right hand. Transplant. Chapter 465 Straw Hat 2 or 3 Things. In the dimly lit dungeon, a sad atmosphere circulated. X23 US. Com updates fastest. The air seems to be frozen, no longer as light as it used to be. The heavy air is like an iron stone pressing heavily on the person's chest. Just breathing has already tried his best, but how heavy is it? There is no heavy heart pain to come. Damn. Crack. He punched the wall with a heavy punch, and he didn't hold back at all. The powerful force instantly blasted a big hole in the wall, but since it was a dungeon, it was natural to have a very thick wall. Although a big hole was punched, it was still far from enough. To the limit. Obviously, compared to a hard wall, the fist without hockey is a little weaker, especially if the owner of this fist is a chef who never fights with his fists. This situation is even more obvious. The blood gradually flowed down the bottom of the big hole. Damn. The man with curly eyebrows stood by the wall, tears silently falling from the corners of his eyes. This team has never experienced such a situation. Even when facing the crocodile in Alabasta not long ago, they have never felt such despair. Only this time, the gap with the enemy is the difference between heaven and earth. Even if everyone risked their lives, it would be difficult to shake the giant ship that could easily fly in the sky. Usopp. Usopp. The petite reindeer cried, Usopp. It hurts. It hurts so much. Consciousness is chaotic, the eyes are full of darkness, nothing can be seen, nothing can be heard, just like drifting in a dark abyss, lying on his back on the dark water, only a few centimeters away from the face. Yes, the indestructible black stone wall has no resistance, and can only drift with the waves, not knowing what kind of place it is drifting towards. What's wrong? What exactly happened? I can't do it. I can't do things like thinking at all. I can't think. I can't act. I can't do anything, and the only thing I can do is just go with the flow in a daze. Then. Usopp. No, Usopp, hold on. Suddenly I heard such a voice, a very sad, terrified voice. Usopp, who's here? Usopp, 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 yes, yes. It's my partner. The eyes finally opened. Usopp. Hoo. Covered in bandages, the man lying motionless on the ground shouted and suddenly sat up, gasping for breath, Usopp. Luffy. The man with curly eyebrows turned his head, and there was a hint of joy in his eyes, but immediately, another kind of sad feeling was brewing in his heart. Luffy. Hearing the man's voice as well, the reindeer raised his head with tears streaming down his face. Usopp, Usopp. He's about to die. What? Straw Hat's eyes widened, his eyes filled with blankness. Hey, Chopper, what are you talking about? Usopp, Usopp. Doctor. Chopper cried. His fluffy face was full of tears, and the fluffy hair had turned into several clumps, severely badly injured. How come? A little dumbfounded, the straw hat tried to stand up from the ground, but the injury on his body prevented him from doing such a thing. Plop! The straw hat fell to the ground, and he was also seriously injured. Although there was no penetrating injury like the long nose, it was definitely not good for Vlad to wrap Hockey's fist. A lie. Like a caterpillar, the man twisted to the other side. His straw hat was covered in sweat, painful sweat. Was it the body or the mind? Usopp. Then I finally saw it. Lying on the ground, the chest had been wrapped with thick bandages, but red traces could still be vaguely seen. The body was charred black, and the breathing was intermittent, and it looked like it would pass away without knowing when. Cheat, cheat, cheat. Straw Hat's eyes widened, and unspeakable fear appeared in his eyes. No, no, Usopp. Luffy, don't cry. At this time, a weak voice from the green algae head came from one side, don't cry. Zoro. The straw hat turned his head in surprise. His upper body was naked, and the man who was also wrapped in thick bandages leaned against the wall, his head lowered, and his face was solemn. Don't cry. The green algae swordsman, Roronoa Zoro, the straw hat's earliest partner, said, if you don't know what to do, we are really screwed. Remember, Luffy, you are our captain, we follow you. Don't forget, Luffy, you're the captain. You're the one leading us. But, with tears in her eyes, Straw Hat looked around. Except for her dying long nose, her body was charred black. Miss Nami, who was also unconscious, and Brook, whose bones were full of cracks, was the first time this little pirate group had suffered such a trauma. But everyone. Don't hesitate, Luffy. The man with curly eyebrows said, only you must not hesitate. Everyone is conscious of death and risking everything to participate in the battle. Believe them, just like before. Believe in Miss Nami, believe in Brook, trust Usopp, no one will die. All will live. So, Luffy, don't hesitate. Think, what the hell are we going to do? Sanji. Straw Hat nodded slowly and said, I understand. The enemy is indeed an adversary we cannot defeat, of course I know that. The Straw Hat's voice was a little low. This time, we lost the battle, completely lost. Robin, she is threatened for our survival. The man's hand clenched his fist tightly. Although he didn't know what happened later, he knew what Nico Robin said before. There must be such a guy in the sea, such a strong guy. We are still too weak. For this sea, we are still too young. Stronger, stronger, in order not to cry for the hurt of our comrades, we must become stronger and stronger. That's nice, the Straw Hat owner. Suddenly, a man's voice came from outside the fence, and a man with a knife on his shoulder appeared outside the dungeon at some point. Hey! Dr. Chopper looked startled and backed away unconsciously. Well, although I think you should think about how to survive from us before you want to become stronger, but since the captain has decided to let you go, that's fine. Luo said, I can be happy. I have saved my life. Where's Robin? The Straw Hat raised his head and said solemnly. Nicole Robin. Luo smiled and said, I'm helping the captain, and I think it will be returned to you soon. Don't worry, you won't break your promise if you let it go, because it's not necessary, right? Damn. Curly eyebrows furrowed fiercely. By the way, Dr. Chopper. Luo said, that long nose is badly injured, right? Need help. What? Chopper was a little surprised. What happened to this devil? It's not for nothing, of course, my captain. Luo said, interested in something about you. Chapter 466 Cloud's Punishment. Although the name of Sky Island is an island, it is actually not just one island, but a place composed of two islands, the Island of God and the Island of Angels. The locals call the place they live in the realm of God. By the god of Sky Island, the fire dragon Vlad, a sudden battle has come to an end. For the residents of Sky Island, it seems like nothing has happened. In fact, it is the same. For the angels around the Island of God, the brief battle between the Straw Hat Pirates and the Fire Dragon Pirates was completely ignorant, and no one knew that such a thing had happened. This is of course, after all, the place of battle is already in the forbidden area of Sky Island people, the station of the Fire Dragon pirates. It is no longer an area that ordinary Sky Island people can set foot in. Not to mention, the battle is over very quickly, completely no damage was done, and the only fierce battle was the battle between the Straw Hats and the dragon-toothed soldiers they encountered when they first rushed into the Island of God, and the battle between the God soldiers and the monster Chimera. Just 2 fights. It has been a week since the battle on that day, and then, at noon on this day, the Straw Hat pirates will finally start their journey again, and they can finally start their journey from this extremely beautiful, extremely romantic, but yet heavy burden to them. The shadow of the place left. On the side of the Island of God, a small boat began to gradually leave the coast with the warm wind, and drifted away on the rippling sea of clouds, not knowing where it was heading. Goodbye, Sanji. On the shore, the chef put his arms around his chest and smiled as he watched the boat gradually disappear into the white sea of clouds, and said softly, "Don't die. Next time, let's continue the showdown. I'm looking forward to it." 03-0. In the distance, on a small boat drifting along the sea of clouds, the Straw Hat group frowned. "It's really troublesome now." Curly Eyebrows let out a sigh of smoke, and said with some distress, "The sail was burned, the rudder was damaged, and the Mary was completely out of control. Where will we drift to?" "Probably floated to the end of the white sea and fell from the sky." The woman sitting on the stairs with Erlang's legs crossed squinted her eyes and smiled happily. "Maybe she will fall directly to Laugh Tale." "Don't tell such a horrible joke, Robin." The orange-haired woman, still in bandages, complained, "It's bad enough." He. The man sitting cross-legged on the sheep's head giggled, "It's great, everyone is fine, it's great." Captain Fool. The green algae-headed swordsman rubbed his eyebrows and said weakly, "It's not a happy situation now." Yo ho ho ho. Drinking a lot of milk, he smiled and replied softly, "Let Luffy be happy if you want. After all, it took a long time to recover from such a blow." Will it fall from the sky? The little reindeer covered his ears with 2 small hooves. It was very strange. His hat flew straight up with his horns, and he had no idea what the reason was. This is an altitude of 10,000 meters above the sea. 10,000 meters. Poof. The man who was wrapped in bandages like a mummy spurted out a mouthful of water and suddenly lost consciousness. "Ah, Usopp!" the reindeer yelled. 10,000 meters. Only then did the Straw Hat come back to his senses. "Isn't this dead?" "Yeah, this is Sky Island's floating cloud punishment." Nicole Robin smiled, "I'm afraid that's what happened to us. It's like the sunken ship that fell from the sky when we went to Sky Island. It fell from a height of 10,000 meters and fell into powder." Everyone said don't say such terrible things with a smile. Miss Navigator burst into tears. "No." The Straw Hat yelled, finally realizing the cruelty of the matter, "I want to become One Piece, King of Pirates." "Really, the situation is really troublesome," said, "even if we can control the direction by rowing the paddle, but we can't go back to Sky Island, so we can only die of old age in the White Sea." "Not necessarily." The smiling woman suddenly said this. "What?" Sanji looked very surprised, and then the heart in his eyes already popped out. "Miss Robin." "It's not impossible." Nico Robin smiled and took out a small shriveled octopus from her small bag. "This is something I took from a certain man. Maybe I can really rely on it to go down to the Blue Sea. Captain, you said." The beautiful woman asked curiously, "Can those guys survive?" Vlad sat leisurely on the sofa with a cup of steaming milk tea next to him. This man, even if it was a drink, liked sweets. He was flipping a book in his hand, with very beautiful handwriting on it. It looks pleasing to the eye. Gently moving his head away, Vlad turned a page and said casually, "Who knows? Will it be dead or alive? What will it be like? Maybe it will die, maybe it will survive, let fate decide." Quote. Hey Tilda, does the captain think so? The woman named Serena said a little narrowly, but, Captain, haven't you already given all the octopus balloons to that woman? Because that woman is quite interesting. Vlad smiled and said, she's a woman who makes people feel very pleasant to communicate with. Serena looked stunned. She never thought Vlad would say such a thing. Then, the expression on the woman's face suddenly changed, and a playful smile hung on her cheek. What? Never. Is the captain, who is dismissive of women, finally tempted by women? Don't think too much. Vlad smiled. That woman is a little too weak. Oh, so my captain still upholds your strange view of choosing a mate. Serena sneered. Then you may be single for the rest of your life. Who knows that? Vlad smiled. Who knows what will happen in the future? Maybe I will meet a super powerful woman. Maybe I will experience some events to change my view of mate choice. Let time tell. However, Nicole Robin, she's really a good woman. Vlad said this with a smile on his face. Although he only got along for a few days, he couldn't help but feel a lot more like that woman. She is really a good woman, intellectual, wise, independent, strong, and occasionally has a black belly. Of course, what is even more admirable is her unrepentant pursuit of the truth. If it weren't for her weak strength, Vlad might be a little tempted, but it can only be said that it is a pity. After all, Uncle Vlad can not that kind of superficial man. Captain, it's done. Suddenly, a man with a long knife in his hand appeared in front of Vlad with a smile on his face. Want to give it a try? Oh. Vlad's eyes lit up. Chapter 467 Blue Ball. Behind the shrine, in the empty training ground, several people formed a group, not knowing what they were doing. Oh, that's it. Vlad was in the middle of the crowd, his eyes were very curious, and he said softly, in his hand, was a large glass bottle, and inside was a large bottle of yellow spheres. Small, one was probably the size of Vlad's thumb. These things are the research results of the research team of the Fire Dragon Pirates in the past few days. It's not bad. Doctor, has this thing been made in such a few days? Vlad shook the bottle in his hand, and the yellow sphere inside collided with the glass bottle from time to time to make a clattering sound. It's not a difficult thing. Luo smiled and said indifferently, after all, the recipe is already given by Dr. Chopper. I just need to find the ingredients and prepare them. It's not a difficult thing to do. The only trouble is that Dr. Chopper's work is based on his own physical condition. If you want to make a captain that you can use, you can't follow the recipe directly. Luo smiled. Fortunately, Passo's skills are really good. With the help of him, and Mr. Judge, today, this bottle of Lambo Ball is completed. Vlad looked surprised. Is there any help from Mr. Judge? Thank you so much. Mr. Judge, you are very helpful. The person Vlad thanked, the man named Vinsmoke Judge, was not in a beautiful mood. Of course, anyone who had such an experience would not be in a beautiful mood. After all, standing in front of Vlad was not a living Mr. Judge, but a furry gorilla that was half a person tall. There is also a pair of glasses in the position, just like the big horse monkey in the circus, which looks very funny. However, this is not funny, because, without a doubt, this orangutan is Vinsmoke Judge himself. Under the influence of Luo's ability, this guy was replaced by the body of an orangutan. After all, Vlad's behavior towards this man I was very unhappy. I wanted to punish this man once. It was originally Vlad who wanted to change Mr. Judge's personality through genetic technology. But thinking about it like this is a bit too cruel, and Judge himself can change back. Just thinking of Luo's ability to do such a thing, isn't this kind of punishment the best? A man who is proud of his bloodline loses his bloodline, and then turns into an animal that he usually dismisses. Isn't this an interesting punishment? Fire Dragon. Although he has turned into an orangutan, he is peculiarly able to speak. It seems that Judge has transformed his current body these days. When will you return the body to me? Although I no longer wanted to live before, but after that period of time, the courage that once overflowed has dissipated, and the desire to live and live once again prevailed. Even if he had turned into an orangutan, this man, he also wanted to live. Of course, it would be better if he could change back into a human being. In order to stimulate the man's enthusiasm for work, Vlad specially asked Paso and Luo to revive Judge's original body and soak it in the culture medium. Well, don't worry, Mr. Judge. Vlad turned his head away and stopped looking at Judge. He couldn't bear to see the man, the expectant look in the orangutan's eyes. He would want to laugh. It's not the time, your body has been severely injured, and it's getting worse right now. Recovering, don't worry, don't worry. Roar. Judge let out a low howl. Of course he knew that Vlad was perfunctory to him, but he couldn't do anything about it. After all, only Luo could exchange him back, except that he was holding his heart now. Even the body was held in the hands. Hey, that's not bad. Vlad said so. The bottle of yellow sphere in his hand is called the Blue Wave Ball, which is the proud work of the ship Dr. Tony Chopper of the Straw Hat Pirates. It can adjust the wavelength of the devil fruit, so that there are originally only 3. The zone devil fruit in form has multiple transformations and has a variety of forms. It can be said that it has a very powerful boost for zone devil fruit ability. Of course, Vlad is not interested in this one. These various forms of enhancement are optional for him, and he does not need it at all. However, the Blue Wave Ball has another function, and that is the most important thing for him. Want to experience it? Doctor. Vlad said, is this thing reliable? Well, there is absolutely no problem in other aspects except that it is tailor-made for you, Captain, which is different from Dr. Chopper. Luo said so firmly. Well. Paso, who has been a little dumb, saw Vlad questioning his skills, and said dully, no problem, Luo, and me, no problem. And Luo smiled and calmly took out a small bottle from his pocket, which also contained a dozen or so yellow Blue Wave balls. I knew for a long time that you would have such concerns, Captain, so the samples used in the experiment were also made. All right. Oh. Vlad's eyes were glowing, the corners of his mouth curled up, and he smiled, hey. It's really foresight, Doctor, it's great. Such an idea is really great. There is no exact experiment, it's just a theory, of course it is unbelievable. Quote. More than that. With a playful smile on Luo's face, he turned his head to look aside. Even the test guinea pig has been found. Hey hey. Vlad smiled and followed Luo's gaze to the side. Doctor, you really understand me. You. Under the boundary wall of the training ground, the big white dog tied into a ball whimpered helplessly, tears falling from the corner of its eyes. Today, once again, this big white dog has become an experimental tool for the evil forces. Then hurry up. Let's try it out. What kind of effect does this Blue Wave Ball have? Vlad smiled. I can't wait. As you wish. Luo smiled, popped the stopper of the glass bottle in his hand with a boom, and with an expectant smile on his face, he had already walked towards the innocent big white dog. Vlad was not the only one who was expecting the effect of this medicine. As a maker, he himself is equally curious. Woo. Shaking his head weakly, this big white dog could only watch Luo pour a Blue Wave Ball into its innermost. Ouch. A high roar, change, and this happened. Chapter 468 Rampage. Awakening. Ouch. With a high roar, the big white dog who was once again used as an experimental tool was full of grief and indignation. However, the pitiful thing is that it is completely unable to resist these guys who play with him at will. The power of these bastards is too powerful. The tightly closed mouth was ruthlessly pulled open. A yellow thing was stuffed into the mouth, forced to swallow it helplessly, and then, the change happened. Something in the body is changing, even if it does not have much wisdom, but this cyborg wolf can still feel that something is changing in the body, not the change in strength, but something else. Hey! A few flashes of cold light flashed, and the rope tied to the big white wolf broke instantly, and a white shadow jumped up and landed lightly not far away, looking carefully towards this side. Oh, this is okay. Vlad stared with interest. It's really good. Just in front of him, the big white dog has undergone a huge change, not turning into a huge white wolf like the previous battle, but a more peculiar change. This guy has stood up, like a white werewolf. Zone Devil Fruit has 3 forms: human form, human beast form and beast form, because it is essentially a robot enchantment, so the white wolf does not have a human form, only a half-beast form, which is the normal half-mechanical wolf form, and the other is a completely animal shape, that is, the shape of a huge white wolf. But now, a new form has appeared. The hind limbs are elongated, the soles of the feet are longer, stand up, the hip bones are wider, the forelimbs are thicker, the fingers on the soles of the feet are distinct, and the back is also wider. A wolf head that looks silly, but it is not big, that is, it is a little bigger than the shape of a cyborg wolf, and it is similar to Vlad's body. Yes, is this Garuru? Vlad nodded, with a 3-point scrutiny, and chuckled. The blue wave ball can adjust the wavelength of the devil fruit, thereby enhancing the ability of the zone ability in some aspects, so as to obtain different forms. See what this guy looks like now. I am afraid it is to strengthen the jumping agility and upper body strength. How can you strengthen several aspects at the same time? Vlad said with some doubts. Of course he knew that Mr. Chopper, the founder of Lamble, had never done such a thing. Different forms correspond to different reinforcements, but what is the situation of this dog? Is it because the main body is a robot, so it is more enduring? Forget it, it doesn't matter. Vlad smiled. He didn't care much about what he wanted, all he cared about was what role this blue wave ball could play. Doctor, continue. What? Luo was a little stunned. Captain. Continue what? Keep giving medicine. Vlad said, how can one be enough? But, Luo said with some doubts, the essence of the blue wave ball is to adjust the fluctuation of the devil fruit. If you eat too much, the fluctuation of the deformation will be uncontrollable. Yes, it will run wild. That's all I want. Vlad snapped his fingers and said, that's what I want. That's what I want to see. Well, if you insist, Captain. Luo nodded and looked at the wolf on the opposite side. Ow. Almost subconsciously, the wolf took 2 steps back, shivering. Room. Quote. The translucent space spread instantly, and with a kai sound, Luo appeared behind the white wolf, swept the werewolf lightly, kicked the werewolf to the ground, and poured out a few blue wave balls from the bottle into the werewolf's mouth. Woo. Completely unable to resist, several blue wave balls have been stuffed into his mouth. Shoot. Luo's body disappeared again and appeared in front of Vlad. It's done. Okay, then let me see. Vlad smiled. What does the so-called runaway look like? Roar. Vlad didn't wait long, and a strong change appeared in front of several people. The shape of the werewolf suddenly began to change, returning to the form of a wolf, landing on all fours. His body suddenly raised, and his white hair began to grow, shrouded in the body of the giant wolf-like clothes, and the scarlet pupils were full of animal nature. In the blink of an eye, the human-sized werewolf had transformed into a ferocious giant wolf, far bigger than when the wolf had been given the enhanced gummies before, not to mention its beast form. Ow! The saliva flowed out of the big mouth, and the scarlet pupils stared at Vlad and his group. Although it seemed that they had lost their rationality, the hostility still remained. Wow, this is a runaway. Vlad's eyes lit up. Such a gesture, it's really like. Roar. The giant wolf could no longer suppress the animal nature in his heart, and rushed towards Vlad like lightning, his mouth full of huge teeth opened wide, and bit towards Vlad. The smell of stench made people nauseated. Bang. Vlad jumped and slapped the giant wolf's forehead directly. The contrast in body size was huge, like a mouse biting a person. However, this mouse was a sky-devouring mouse. Kara. With some sour teeth, the place where the giant wolf was kicked by Vlad sags directly, and the bones are broken. After that, the giant wolf was blasted away instantly and fell heavily to the ground. Captain. Luo was a little surprised. What was Vlad doing? I want to see it. Vlad looked expectantly at the giant wolf on the ground and smiled. I'm just curious. Ow! An astonishing thing happened in such a grand manner. The wound on the giant wolf's head began to heal slowly, and after a while, it was completely recovered. After shaking his head, which was a little dizzy, the giant wolf stood up. He got up and looked at Vlad, roaring in a low voice, looking very afraid. Interesting, interesting. Vlad smiled. That's interesting. Isn't it? Super resemblance. Vlad thinks it's very similar. This runaway state is really similar to Zone's awakening. Strength, defense, physical strength, stamina, and resilience are really similar, aren't they? The only difference is probably that the runaway will continue to lose vitality. Okay, now that it's confirmed, then. Vlad stretched out his right hand. Just change back. Dark water. Ow. Vlad's hand was filled with black mist, and the giant wolf was completely unable to resist. The strong suction instantly applied to it, and Vlad was easily taken off. Then, the dark palm touched the body of the giant wolf. The originally huge wolf shrank suddenly and turned back into a small robot. The dark fruit can suppress all abilities, so it's not a joke. Come on, doctor. Vlad turned his head and walked away. Call God, the chef, the samurai and the maid. Let's go to the Blue Sea next. The next experiment can't be done on Sky Island. Chapter 469. The Dragon of Rampage. The Great Route is very peculiar. This is a well-known thing. The general navigation between islands has completely lost its function. Only the recording needle can navigate normally on the Great Route. It can only pass between two adjacent islands. It can be said that in the Great Route, only such an island with magnetic force can be easily reached by humans. X23 US. Com updates fastest. Of course, it is natural that those without magnetism will not appear in the direction of the recording pointer, of course, will not appear in front of the ship, and it will be difficult to be discovered by others. The unexpected discovery that these islands have no magnetism and will not appear on the charts are equivalent to invisible islands, standing quietly on the Great Route, but no one can approach them. This small island is such a place. The island is full of wild trees and weeds. It is disorderly and looks full of life. There are not too many animals, which is of course, because this is a parallel. The island is not very large, and there is no fixed water source. If there are animals living, it is estimated that they will not survive for long. The island that no one has ever set foot on has finally welcomed its first wave of visitors today. From the country above the sky, a group of people from Sky Island landed on this small island in a flying pirate group. Above. Captain, is it necessary to run this far? The maid gently threw the cigarette butt in her hand to the ground, and the sparks began to spread. Is it close to the upside-down mountain? It is necessary. Vlad smiled. Of course it is necessary. After all, Sky Island is our home base. You don't look like you're going to destroy it, do you? So, is this experiment so dangerous? Chef said, need to go to such a desert island on purpose. Well, of course, it must be an extremely dangerous experiment. Maybe our fire dragon pirates will be destroyed like this, not necessarily. Vlad grinned like this. Since it's so dangerous, don't do it. Sakata put his arms around his chest and looked a little speechless. Since he knew it was so dangerous, then don't do it. Are you bored? Always wanting some big news. Woo ha ha ha, just kidding, just kidding, how could the group be destroyed so easily? Vlad laughed, with a look of candid laughter. Of course it's a joke, but... His eyes suddenly became serious again. Although it's a joke, of course there is still danger. That's why I called you all. The people who went down to this island with Vlad, as well as the chef Dino, the maid Baby 5, the boatman Enel, the swordsman Sakata, and above the sky not far away, the rest of the fire dragon pirates are on standby at any time. Such a situation where all staff are dispatched is rare. What the hell do you want to do, Captain? The maid frowned with her delicate eyebrows and said solemnly, I can't figure out what kind of thing would make us all dispatch. Are we going to fight the 4 emperors? It's not. Vlad smiled and took out a small bottle with a dozen or so blue balls in it. Of course, that huge bottle is not easy to carry around. It is just the right size. It's just an experiment. Experiment. Enel laughed. Yeah, that's really interesting, Captain. What kind of experiment is that? What kind of experiment? Vlad opened the stopper of the bottle, poured out a few blue balls, and chuckled. It will be a very interesting experiment. Listen, mates. Vlad smiled. I may have some problems later. If I can't control myself, don't leave it. What? Cook frowned. Captain, what are you trying to do? What I want to do is just a drug experiment. Vlad smiled, raised his head and swallowed several blue wave balls. It's just that it's likely to make me go wild. Runaway means. The maid blinked her beautiful eyes. What? What? Vlad smiled. That's literally what it means. Guys. If you really go crazy, you have to stop me. Just shoot me into the sea. Huh. Enel was a little confused. What do you mean, Captain? Isn't there any tacit understanding? God meet. Vlad's eyes widened suddenly, going-colored pupils looming. Is this here? Vlad finally said, don't be merciful. I don't know how strong I will be in the future. There. Before he finished speaking, a white gold flame shot up into the sky, not a decoration, but a real soaring into the sky. If the flames were so turbulent, the flames shot up to a height of hundreds of meters. Not right. The chef shouted, back off. The people who came to this island with Vlad are the most capable guys of the Fire Dragon Pirates. Of course, they would not react. Blue and white thunder and lightning rose into the sky, and Enel, who was the incarnation of thunder and lightning, had already flown into the sky. Almost at the same time, the howling wind sounded, and the maid whose souls turned into flame thrusters also flew into the sky. Hey! Immediately afterwards, the yellow column suddenly spread from the ground to the sky. The chef has stepped on this column and rushed to the sky, and then kept making solidified butter blocks, and then stepped on it and jumped upwards. This way, it was also achieved. Floated. Hey, did you just abandon me without hesitation? Sakata on the ground stared at the dead fish and looked at the three people above the sky, and his heart was a little broken. What are these guys doing? They don't care about the feelings between their companions at all. Didn't they say that they are good partners in the same boat? Is this the surface brother? In the blink of an eye, the raging flames had approached Sakata's side, and the strong hot wind was blowing towards him, and he could clearly feel the intense high temperature. Tsunami. I don't know when, the black knife Chushui has appeared in Banshin's hand, with both hands, and then it seems to slowly swipe from left to right. Invisible fluctuations spread out in an instant, like a real tsunami. With a surge of fire. Wow! Just like a gust of wind swept the earth, the flames around Banshin were directly blocked by an invisible wall, and it was completely impossible to get close to Banshin. Not only that, the flames were still retreating extremely quickly, constantly retreating, and a large open space was instantly opened around Banshin. That is. Sakata was not at all proud. His eyes widened, his face full of shock. What? Roar. A violent roar came from the center of the flame, and the flame that had spread wantonly on the island by virtue of its inextinguishable characteristics also had its head suppressed under this roar, prostrate on the ground, as if worshipping the monarch of the flame. Ah! Sakata covered his eyes unconsciously, and the violent wind rushed towards his face. Then, he finally saw the fierce beast hidden in the flames. The incomparably huge, ferocious, and incomparably powerful dragon finally revealed its true face. Chapter 470. The strongest. The craziest. The fiercest. The height is at least 15 meters high. It is a real behemoth, and it is not considered a short stature among giants. The fire-red dragon scales are extremely dazzling under the illumination of the surrounding fire, just like gems. Bright, the world. The most beautiful colors in the world are just like that, right? The body is not so much the appearance of a dragon, but it is closer to the form of a human. The torso is very majestic, like a giant dragon standing upright. The arms are thick and powerful, and the legs are on the ground as if there is nothing left. Shake, there is absolutely nothing in the world that can make it move. X23 US. Com updates fastest. VV, S2 broad wings were flapping, and the gust of wind it brought easily made the surrounding flames unable to rise again. The neck was longer than the previous dragon form, but it was thicker than the dragon form, and the head was thicker. It is more like a mixture of dragon form and dragon human form. It is a step further towards the appearance of dragons. The mouth is protruding, the fangs are exposed, the nostrils are dilated, and the sparks are ejected from the inside with the breath, and the eyes are like two eyes. Like the luminous going star, it exudes a strange light. The double horns on the head have turned into a spiral shape, meandering straight to the sky, looking extremely mighty. What is it? Sakata's eyes widened. Is this the captain's experiment? Maid said in shock, such a sense of oppression is indeed a very dangerous experiment. So, Chef said solemnly, does the captain mean to let us stop him like this? No wonder we didn't do this experiment on Sky Island. If that's the case, maybe Sky Island will really be destroyed. Yeah haha. Enno laughed. So is this the time to praise the captain's foresight? Praise or not, I don't know. On the ground, Banshin pulled out another sword from his waist. His eyes were a little dignified, all I knew was. Wow. The air seemed to be distorted, and before the wind was aroused, the broad giant palm was already slapped towards Sakata's body. Really, because you can't fly, did you find me directly from the beginning? Sakata slandered, this is very uncomfortable. Everyone else can fly up to the sky to avoid it, but he stays on the ground by himself to attract firepower. Knife flow, flowing water, tidal. Holding the two knives in his hands, his body twisted sharply, as if there were waves surging in Sakata's eyes. The azure blue was refreshing, and the violent slash had already flown out. It was extremely thick, like a genuine tide. The whole sea was exerting force, and the huge blue slash had already slammed heavily on the giant claws that were slammed towards Sakata. Boom! The giant claws slammed heavily on Banshin's side, and the ground covered by the flames shattered instantly. The thick cracks spread around this center, and huge potholes appeared on the ground. Call! Sakata let out a breath slowly, and he jumped into the air. His eyes were extremely solemn. Although the blow just now was not his full strength, it was strong enough, but it did not attack the violent Vlad. What damage does it cause? It just offsets that blow a bit. What a terrible power! Not using hockey, has the strength of reached such a point? Sakata was a little terrified. Two-knife flow, hit the water. The two knives staggered up and down, the body suddenly twisted in the air, and with a twist, the two staggered blue slashes had already slashed towards the giant dragon on the ground. Roar! Vlad roared, did not dodge, clenched his right fist, and smashed directly at Sakata. The black armament hockey had already covered his fist. Kara! The blue slash had shattered, and the terrifying punch compresses the air, forming something similar to an air cannon. Before the fist hit, Sakata already felt a strong impact. PFF'd. With some dull sound, a cloud of yellow grease suddenly rose from the ground, instantly wrapping Vlad's fist, and in the next instant, the grease solidified directly, like a hill, surging from the ground, directly covering Vlad's fist. His fist froze. Yeah haha. I wanted to have a good fight with the captain for a long time. Above the sky, thunderclouds surged, and the bright weather just now dissipated in an instant, and all that could be seen was the dark clouds in the sky and the thunder light surging in it. The man with the lightning flashing on his body laughed loudly, raised his right hand high, and pointed his index finger to the sky. Volt doesn't matter anymore. Crack! Thunderclouds suddenly radiated strong light, and a slender figure was looming in the clouds. Immediately, a huge blue and white dragon head had emerged from the clouds. Thunder Dragon. The right hand swung down sharply, and above the clouds, the Thunder Dragon also moved. Light, overwhelming thunder. Incomparably huge, with scales and claws, the slender Thunder Dragon finally showed its shape from the 9 heavens. After breaking out of the clouds, the huge thunder dragon instantly turned into a dazzling pillar of thunder, falling from the sky. The target, of course, was the locked Vlad. Quote. The dragon raised his head, his eyes were already shrouded in white light, and the lightning strike from the sky didn't give him any chance to react at all. Boom! The huge explosion shook the sky, and the jumping electric light filled the island. The island that was crumbling due to the spread of flames was even more dangerous. Of course, compared to the strong people on the sea, such a small island it is too fragile. Does it mean awakening? Maid said softly, you really listen to the captain. No way. The chef, who was still jumping up and down to maintain his position in the air, said, my ability is really restrained by the captain. I can't do my best. Chef Dino is an oil fruit person, while Captain Vlad is a dragon fruit person. Attacks such as flames and high temperatures are completely useless to him, but his flames can completely restrain the chef's oil. It can be said that it is very unfair. Because, the captain is no match for us to be waterproof. Enel put it this way. Come on. Whoosh. The smoke suddenly dissipated, the strong wind was blowing, the huge red dragon was exposed, and the huge wings on the back slammed down. The soil is flying everywhere, and such a huge movement brings huge power. Of course, the giant dragon soars into the sky. Obviously it is a very huge body, but the speed is truly a red comet. Armament hockey on the upper body has not yet dissipated. The previous blow from Enel also had no effect on him. Thunder and lightning are terrifying, but the high temperature is useless. The electric charge is blocked by hockey and the strengthened scales. This attack is not enough. There. The flames spread out, but in the blink of an eye, the white gold flames had wrapped around the body of the fire dragon, and the flame-covered giant dragon smashed across the sky. Chapter 471 Half Awake. Really, is even the unconscious state so difficult? The maid looked at the approaching flame dragon and sighed. This is our captain. The chef smiled. Yes, captain. Maid suddenly showed Isho's face, her face full of excitement. Speaking of which, when I was trained by the captain, I really wanted to fight back. Carrara. The maid stretched out her right hand towards the rushing dragon. Almost instantly, the drastic change appeared. The powerful power endowed by the weapon fruit began to work, and the arm immediately turned from the beautiful woman's arm into a ball of continuous surging machinery. Soon, a silver light flickering cannon appeared in her right hand. At the position of the muzzle, the blue light began to converge, the fiery temperature began to diffuse, and the dazzling light looked like a small same as the sun. Captain, this is not my intention to take revenge. The maid had an excited smile on her face. This is your own request. Full power of the incendiary gun. Hey! With a soft sound, a bright white beam of light roared out. There was almost no sound, and there was almost no delay. The moment the maid opened the cannon, the attack had already reached Vlad. Boom! The strong explosion just happened. The strong storm made the maid's body suddenly flutter with the wind, and the clothes flew up and down. It was a very powerful blow. Roar! However, useless. The huge red dragon wrapped hockey easily and broke through the smoke, and the incendiary cannon did no harm to him. It has been said that attacks such as flames and high temperatures are useless to the captain. The chef said with a wry smile, the advantage of the dragon fruit is really great. There. The flames soared into the sky, and the giant dragon was already close at hand. On the huge right claw, white gold flames were entwined, and the wind was fanning towards the maid. Hey, am I the target? Maid twitched the corners of her mouth. Even in an unconscious state, it's still as hot as ever. Did you actually describe yourself that way? The two knives are flowing and the water is breaking. When? Slash from the bottom up. The dazzling azure blue slash shot into the sky. A man named Sakata shot up from the ground with two swords in his hands, forming an astonishing slash like two waterfalls, hitting Vlad's palm heavily. Hey! Sakata exclaimed involuntarily, and the terrifying power swept over, and the whole person was directly knocked into the air, flying towards the distance, but at the same time, Vlad's right claw that had originally slammed into the maid was also bounced off, and the huge dragon instantly the middle door opened, and he lost his balance. The giant's right wrist. The chef clenched his right fist, and in the air behind him, the grease quickly gathered, and it was huge. The fist made of butter has emerged. There is no doubt that the ability to make grease in the air is not something that can be achieved by simple development. It belongs to the category of awakening. The dark hockey was attached to it, and the chef slammed his fist, and the huge butter fist also slammed into Vlad. Bang! The huge fist slammed heavily on Vlad's face. The huge dragon's face was crooked, and it looked a little bit grinning. This blow finally had some results. Such a naked physical attack has a more obvious effect. A little. Thor. Crackling. The dazzling thunder light fell from the sky and directly hit Enel's body. The man's body swelled violently, and the blue god of thunder and lightning appeared in the sky. It's not over yet. There was a wanton smile on Enel's huge face. It's not enough. Crackling. Crack. Crack. Another dozen thunders and lightning struck Enel's body, and the originally huge body swelled again, and the height of dozens of meters looked extremely infiltrating. Yeah, haha. Flash of lightning. Enel had appeared behind Vlad, stretched out his arms, and tightly guarded the huge red dragon. Captain, come and block it. Such an attack. 0 distance maximum power discharge. Crackling. The electricity accumulated in the body is instantly released, and the bright electric light makes the whole world eclipsed. There is no need for extra tricks at all. Such an attack is already terrifying enough. In addition to allowing Enel to freely create thunder and lightning, the greater the awakening capacitance, and greater output are also extremely significant enhancements. Roar. The attack this time was very powerful, and even the scales of Raging Vlad and the terrifying defense of Hockey couldn't resist such an attack, and he couldn't help but let out a roar of pain. Yeah, haha. Enel laughed. Now, feel a little bit of pain. Captain. Roar. There. Unprecedented, the flames swept out of the fire dragon like a landslide and a tsunami, and the spurt of flames alone produced an extremely strong impact. What? Enel's eyes widened, and the arm holding the fire dragon was actually a little powerless, and was about to be washed away by the flames. Crack. Fire dragon turned around abruptly. Enel couldn't hold the monster any longer, and his arm collapsed into thunder and lightning. Roar. At 0 distance, surging flames spewed out of Vlad's mouth, like a laser, instantly piercing Enel's Thor, and then bombarded the island below. Boom. The dazzling rays of light rose into the sky, followed by the sound of earth-shattering explosions, and the violent wind rose into the sky, and the dark clouds in the sky actually felt like they were blown away. Enel's huge body tightly, exerting force, and the huge Thor split into two and dissipated in the air. Roar. It hurts, asshole. After venting, the giant dragon raised his head and roared like this. Although Thor's state was knocked away, Enel, who was naturally unharmed by Logia, condensed her body not far away, looking a little surprised. Have you regained your senses? The chef said softly. It seems so. The maid nodded, holding the flightless swordsman in her hand. It really hurts, asshole. Vlad yelled, but what a nice job. Damn. So, is it all right? Enel chuckled. Captain. Ah, thanks to you. Vlad shook his huge charred head and said, it woke me up in pain. Then, Captain. The maid carrying Sakata in one hand flew to Vlad's side and said, what is the result of the experiment? Experiment. Vlad tilted his huge head and smiled, very successful. Success. The chef looked puzzled, what is the standard? Standard. Vlad smiled, does that count? Then, under the watchful eyes of his subordinates, Vlad's body suddenly began to shrink, and quickly shrank back to the size of the usual Dragon Man mode. This. Chef's eyes widened, have you mastered the power of this form? Could it be, this is? Wake up. That size, that kind of power, and awakening or something are really similar. It's not. Vlad shook his head and said, at most, half awakened. Chapter 472 Guess. Half awake. On the huge deck of the Platinum Drag, the cook leaned leisurely on the side of the ship and asked, that is to say, did you not reach the level of true awakening? Well. Vlad sat on the deck and devoured, with piles of things in front of him, big chunks of hot meat, desserts with a strong aroma, able to provide him with enough energy. He was really some or too hungry. X23 US. Com updates fastest. Not awakening. Vlad nodded, absolutely not. Although it's a bit close, the gap is still huge. Although it looks very powerful, it is still far from the awakening. Vlad tore a huge stick in his mouth, while still being able to chat with people without being affected at all. I have to say that this is really a very powerful skill. Each type of Devil Fruit Awakening will have a different effect. Zone S Devil Fruit Awakening will grant the ability person unimaginable physical strength, stamina, defense, and resilience. Vlad said, so, the difference between the appearance just now and the awakening is a bit too big, but, I have to say, it is already very close to the level of awakening. Before Vlad swallowed the blue wave ball, the huge fire dragon that the fruit power became rampant, although it was also very powerful, but compared with the awakening, the difference was too great. What Zone's awakening brings is super endurance and super combat power. However, what the previous rampage provided was only strong combat power, and the endurance was not reflected at all. The difference. Mr. Ship Doctor, Trafalgar Law whispered, what is it? As the maker of the blue wave, he is of course very interested in Vlad's state. Wouldn't it be great if such a defect could be made up for with drugs? The difference. Vlad smiled, of course the biggest difference is that the physical strength and stamina enhancement that Zone's awakening will bring are not reflected at all. Let's go into a runaway state for the time being, and that state has no physical enhancement at all, which makes me very happy. Disappointed. What do you mean? The maid frowned. It means. Vlad held a huge stick in his hand and pointed at Zhongshan's appearance. In the state of berserk, the physical strength is not strengthened at all. It will speed up the passage, which is completely the opposite of awakening. Of course, it matches with it. Yes, the strengthening of strength is also very strong. In general, it is not a loss, right? Strength and defense, speed and flame are far stronger than my dragon form. Hey, it seems that this state is also very powerful, but Vlad smiled. The more troublesome thing is that the time limit of the runaway mode is only 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Enel was puzzled. What's going on? The essence of the blue wave ball is to adjust the devil fruit ability by changing the wavelength of the devil fruit. Luo continued, of course the rampage that is spawned in that way will have side effects, right? That's right. Vlad smiled, I noticed it just now. After about 5 minutes, something amazing happened, and the changes began to gradually become uncontrollable. Even. Life is running out. Is that so? Chef said solemnly, it's a very dangerous change. It's okay, it's okay. Vlad waved his hand, as long as it doesn't exceed 5 minutes, it doesn't matter. Now that I haven't awakened, this state is very useful. After all, there is only a 5-minute time limit, but it can explode with great power. In this case so you don't have to save your energy, right? Captain, what are you trying to do? The chef frowned and said softly. Vlad turned his head in surprise. Have you noticed? Whoa, I thought I was acting normal. After all. Cook said softly, the captain has been looking urgent recently. Of course. Vlad smiled, because a big event is coming soon. I don't want to watch a movie in this big event, the constant is stronger. I think this runaway mode and Passo's recovery gummies it will come in handy in no time. Quote. So. Miss Musician laughed and said, Captain, are you going to confront the 4 emperors head-on? Or are you going to attack the Marine headquarters? An opponent worthy of Vlad's preparation, of course, must be at least an opponent of the level of the 4th emperor. In terms of Vlad's current power and strength, although he himself is not willing, he is called the 5th emperor. It is also well deserved. In this world, at the level of pirates, apart from the 4 emperors, there is no one stronger than him. The first one is right. Vlad nodded and said, but let's forget the second one. Courting death is not like this, unless there are enough strong and enough helpers. Are you serious? Serena's eyes widened. Captain, are you serious? Well. Vlad nodded, in the upcoming big event, if you want the situation to develop as I hoped, confronting one of the 4 emperors head-on is a must. It came really suddenly. The maid said softly. Really, if it feels sudden, then digest it well, now. Vlad wiped his mouth, his face filled with excitement. I have another guess. Guess? Cook wondered, what kind of guess? Conjectures about devil fruits. Vlad looked very excited. You think, the blue wave ball changes the shape of the ability by adjusting the wavelength of the fruit ability in the ability person's body, wavelength. Comrades, did you not notice such obvious words? What does that say? This is just a simple description, right? Sakata leaned on the side of the boat and twitched the corners of his mouth. Wavelength. Enel was a little confused. What do you mean? I don't understand what you're talking about. Ah, what a bunch of illiterates. Vlad hates the appearance of iron not turning into steel. I've been thinking in the past. Vlad stood up, stretched his waist long, leaned on the side of the ship, and said, what is the transmission of devil fruit? Or, in other words, after the death of the able person, how does the ability spread? How did you get reborn in the sky north of the South Blue? What's the reason for that? Then, today, after suddenly remembering the wavelength that the blue wave ball can adjust the fruit's ability, I have a conjecture, a very interesting conjecture. Can we think so? Chapter 473 Fluctuation. The essence of fruit power is something like a wave. Vlad raised his index finger and said in a low voice. X23 US. Com updates fastest. Wave. Maid shook her head. I don't understand. It is of course not understandable. In this world, except for those scientists who have mastered black technology, the knowledge level of normal guys is limited to the level of literacy, and the mastery of scientific knowledge is not as good as that of Vlad in his life. Of middle school students. Well, let's keep it simple then. Vlad looked at the maid sympathetically. The more he knew about the basic education of this world, the more worried he became about Mr. Dragon's career. When the people's wisdom was not developed, he wanted to overthrow the world that had ruled the world for 800 years. How difficult a government should be. Vlad can't imagine how many great pirates like the 4 emperors have appeared in the past 800 years, but the government is still solid. But the revolutionary army that appeared for the first time made the government when faced with an enemy. You can imagine what an amazing thing Dragon is doing. It can be understood that the essence of the devil fruit is a kind of wave invisible to the naked eye, similar to the wave of Whitebeard's shock wave, invisible to the naked eye, but it does exist. Vlad said, I think the fluctuation of the devil fruit is not a simple fluctuation, but a very strange fluctuation that carries information. And this information is the ability itself. The chef smiled awkwardly. Captain, you continue. Vlad was also a little embarrassed. Why didn't he bring Paso over? And only chatting with that guy wouldn't be so embarrassing, right? Let's put it this way. Vlad thought for a while, and tried to make it simpler for a former liberal arts student who didn't know much. This is really a difficult thing for a scumbag. The so-called wave is a kind of existence that is invisible to the naked eye. I can't explain it clearly, as long as you know it, because if you understand it in this way, the rebirth of the devil fruit will be clearly explained. Vlad said, the essence of ability is a wave that carries information, and this wave is not a constant layer. In my opinion, it will have 3 changes. Change. The maid was stunned and had no idea what the captain was talking about. In fact, Vlad himself is not very clear about what he is talking about. This is the sadness of the scumbag. He wants to say something but cannot express it correctly. I think so. Vlad said solemnly, in the original devil fruit, this kind of wave already exists. The information of ability exists inside the fruit, and then this kind of wave will react with living objects, or said. It will mutate the creatures that eat the fruit. Variation. Enel scratched his head. Yes, mutation. Vlad said solemnly, don't you think so? The capable ones are completely different from ordinary humans. It is not an exaggeration to say that they are a subspecies of humans, right? Vlad's real thought is, isn't the generation of capable people just like the mutation of many superheroes and supervillains in the American comics that I have seen in the past life that have been radiated by some kind of wave? This is something that Vlad suddenly thought of today. So he thought, the ability person itself, will it be similar, because of radiation and other reasons? So what, Captain, and then? Serena Sand's eyes were shining, and she urged expectantly. Then, when inside the devil fruit, the ability wave, let's call it that, is the first form, but after entering the human body, it will transform into the second form, which can work on the human body. In this case, the devil fruit bites with the next sip, you can already get the ability, and things like this can also be explained. Vlad looked complacent, proud of his ingenuity. The waves that carry information are unified and inseparable. When part of the wave enters the human body, the nature of the wave begins to change, and it is separated from the fruit. Entering the human body together makes the human body change and become a capable person. In this way, because the wave is unique and indivisible, the capable person is of course also the only one. Quote. And then, Captain. The chef nodded calmly and said softly, even if he knew little, he had to show his composure. This is the basic conduct of a qualified sea chef. Then, after the ability person dies, because the attached body loses its vitality, the ability wave hidden in the ability person's body will of course break away from the ability person's corpse, and the shape changes again, turning into a wave that can spread over long distances. Such fluctuations are imperceptible, forms that do not work on the human body. But correspondingly, it can spread freely around the world. In this case, the ability wave that has been spreading all the time will meet a fruit sooner or later, and then, the third change will appear, and the ability wave will be destroyed. When the fruit is absorbed, the fruit will change like a human body and become a devil fruit, and in this way, the cycle will be completed. Quote. Vlad finally said, really super reasonable, right? Amount. Maid's mouth twitched, perhaps. I think so. This kind of wave is actually the body of ability, constantly circulating in the world. When it lurks in the fruit, it produces the devil fruit, and when it enters the human body, it produces the able. Vlad said, when this kind of wave exists in the human body, the person will mutate under the action of the wave, or in other words, under the action of the information contained in the wave, and thus have the ability. So when these waves are restrained, such as the ability of the dark fruit, when this kind of fluctuation is restrained, the ability person will lose his ability, so it may never be the one who has the ability, the one who has the ability may. Vlad grinned, maybe it's just a transfer station. This. Several of Vlad's partners looked at each other, not knowing what to say. Then, such a wave will have a repulsive reaction with other waves. Like, sea stone. The chef said tentatively. Bingo. That's it. Vlad smiled approvingly, the waves are repelling. When you encounter the waves of the sea, you will lose your stamina. When you encounter the waves of other devil fruits, you will explode. And so on. So, Captain. Enel licked his lips and whispered, what the hell are you trying to say? What do you want to say? Vlad smiled, I'm just talking about my guess, nothing else. Then, I'm also very curious, how exactly are these fluctuations created? Chapter 474 Big News. Boom 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 boom. Above the sky, the roar is endless, and the strong flash has covered the brilliance of the sun. X23 US. Com updates fastest. Yeah haha, Captain. Enel flickered, avoiding the roaring violent claws, turning into a thunderbolt and condensing in the higher sky. It's too slow. How could such an attack hit the middle? Cut. The huge red dragon had an unhappy expression on his face. Indeed, the speed and strength defense resistance has been greatly improved, but with the increase in size, there is no doubt that dexterity and agility will be weakened. How arrogant. God. Yeah, haha, isn't that of course? Wan lay. With a wave of Enel's hand, above the sky, the dark clouds gathered, and the thunder light flashed above the dark clouds. The low muffled sound made people palpitate, and the wind suddenly rose, just like the scene before the end of the world. Kacha. Thunder snake surging, thunder dragon roaring. One after another, the thunder light fell from the sky. The tricks that originally needed to use the arc to accumulate dark clouds can be used easily under the effect of awakening. It is not a consumption at all. The attack that was originally a big move is now is easy to use. It's just a flatta that can be used. How arrogant, you bastard. Vlad's mouth twitched. Do you look down on your captain so much? Boom. As if it was a big bang, amazing light and heat emanated from Vlad's body, and white gold flames roared out of him like a tsunami. In the blink of an eye, a small sun was already hanging in the sky. Above, the terrifying temperature spread. Even on the ground, the water that hit the cup seemed to be evaporated. Crackling. Then, the sky-filled razor slammed heavily on the fireball. Really? With an excited smile on Enel's face, that's interesting. Boom. The white gold dragon roared out carrying a raging flame. Dash 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 dash. It's so cool. After a big battle, Vlad sat crossed under the umbrella and devoured it. The rampage mode was really powerful. This place can be seen from the bruised Enel next to him. In the case of not using it for more than 5 minutes, Vlad could not use it for more than 5 minutes. Rad's strength has been greatly strengthened, but the price is the rapid consumption of physical strength, and he has to eat a lot after each use. But it's not an unacceptable side effect, or that being able to eat a little more is still a great enjoyment for Vlad. Really, Captain, it's progressing quite fast. Enel rubbed the bruise on his face and grinned, looking really hurt. I didn't use the blue wave ball today. Did you just enter such a state by yourself? Well, it's not a difficult thing. Vlad said, after all, no matter how you say it, although it is the change produced by using the blue wave ball, it is actually just the development of the fruit ability. Of course, you can master it by using it a few more times. Hey Tilda. Enel grinned, how proud, Captain. It's okay. Vlad lay on the ground with a shy stomach. After a full meal, he wanted to sleep very much. This is human nature. Ah Tilda, I'm so sleepy, get some sleep. But, as always, the guy who disturbed his sleep arrived on schedule. Blue 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 blue. Quote. A low but loud phone bug came from a nearby table. Me. Vlad's face was full of dissatisfaction, and the eyes he had just closed opened again. This is. Yeah haha. Enel stretched. Looks like you can't sleep, Captain. Then I'll take a nap first. Crackling. The lightning flashed, and before Vlad wanted to beat someone, the man named Enel had turned into a lightning and disappeared on the top of the shrine. What a bad guy. Vlad stood up helplessly, took the phone bug, lay back on the ground, put the phone bug on his chest, closed his eyes, and answered the phone. Hey, this is Vlad the Fire Dragon, what's your opinion? The first thing that came over was the laughter of two low-pitched men, which seemed to be somewhat joking. This tone, do you mean that I disturbed your nap again? Vlad. Very familiar voice. Vlad did not look surprised at all. Since you know, then, Tessero, you better have some really shocking news, otherwise. Ha ha ha, it's scary. Is this the fire dragon Vlad, one of the King Shichibukai? It scared me to death. Hee hee. There was such a voice over the phone, and Vlad also heard the laughter of a woman who seemed very happy. Okay, Tessero, stop talking nonsense. You tilde ah. Vlad yawned, I really want to sleep. Really? Well, after hearing the news I'm going to tell you next. Tessero smiled, you'll never be able to sleep again. Yeah tilde, is that right? Vlad smiled indifferently, let's hear it. Just 10 minutes ago, a fight came to an end. Tesoro smiled. Fight? Vlad frowned. 4 emperors clashed. That monster Kaido went to die again. This is not the case. The atmosphere in the New World is a little weird recently. The Whitebeard pirates are all assembled, and it's probably not far from the eruption of the volcano. Tesoro said, at a time like this, no one would want to offend the king of the sea. What's that? Vlad wondered, what is the battle that can make you make such a fuss? Which Shichibukai was subjugated by Marine? Or where did the Revolutionary Army and the government fight? Neither, it's a bigger event. Tesoro laughed. Bigger. Vlad wondered, how big can it be? Has Marineford been invaded by pirates? Almost. Tesoro said so. Almost. Vladin sat up. This is really a big event. What do you mean? Don't give a shit, Tesoro, just tell me. So, Vlad heard Tesoro say, it wasn't the Marine headquarters that was invaded, but the island that never sleeps, which is also one of the 3 major institutions of the world government. Enies Lobby. What? Vlad was taken aback and reacted immediately. Of course, it was the Straw Hats. Those guys didn't die on the way from Sky Island. They returned to Blue Sea safely, like history repeating itself, or got CP9 because of Nico Robin, rushed to Enies Lobby. Has the Enies Lobby been breached? Vlad smiled. This is really big news. What are you talking about? Vlad. Tesoro said strangely, just relying on that group of rookie pirates, how could it be possible to break the Enies Lobby? What? This time, Vlad was really surprised. Chapter 475 Wings Rolled Up Storm. Tesoro, what did you say? Vlad's expression instantly became serious, and the incident changed indescribably. Tell me about it in detail. Just before, what happened on the Enies Lobby? What's wrong? Tesoro looked a little strange when he noticed Vlad's reaction. Although it's a big news, I haven't encountered such a thing for a long time, but it's not that Enies Lobby hasn't been hacked. Vlad, why are you so surprised? Leave nothing else, Tesoro. Vlad said eagerly, tell me, were the Straw Hats the ones who invaded the Enies Lobby? You know what? Tesoro looked surprised. Indeed, the one who invaded the Enies Lobby was indeed the Straw Hat gang who defeated the Sand Crocodile in Alabasta not long ago, headed by the leader of the Straw Hat Pirates, a rookie pirate with a bounty of 100 million Baileys, Monkey D. Luffy. That's right. X23 US. Com updates the fastest. What did you say? The Enies Lobby wasn't breached. Vlad slowly sighed, calmed down, and said with a smile. I'm just curious, why do you think Enies Lobby will be broken by a mere rookie pirates? Tesoro sneered. Although the Enies Lobby is guarded by CP9 flies, it is also one of the 3 major government agencies. How could a group of rookie pirates break through? Well, because I have a relationship with the Straw Hat. I think that guy is still very good. Vlad casually said, so, the result is that the Straw Hat Pirates fell into the sand at the Enies Lobby. Well, of course, is there a second fate? Tesoro said as a matter of course. The battle started by the Straw Hats who invaded the Enies Lobby on the Enies Lobby was completely over 10 minutes ago, and the Straw Hat Pirates were wiped out. Although CP9 is a group of trash, it is still a sea of newcomers to deal with. The thief is still at hand. Well, I'm pretty bullish on the Straw Hat Luffy, but will their voyage end there? Vlad smiled and thought to himself, what happened in the end? The original historical trajectory was completely disrupted. The Enies Lobby should have been broken, and the world-famous Straw Hats were actually defeated by CP9 in the Enies Lobby. The whole army was wiped out. This change is too big, right? Although Vlad didn't care about such a thing, he was very curious, what happened in the middle, which caused such a big deviation in the results. You know, in the original work, the battle between Straw Hat and Lucci is probably the most evenly matched battle after he entered the Great Route. The strength gap between the two is very close, but with a more tenacious will, he finally won. Now suddenly Vlad was really surprised to hear that Lucci was actually able to fight back. Well, Vlad was taken aback. Rob Lucci. Don't tell me. No. He vaguely knew what the problem was. PFF tilde if that's the case. Vlad smiled, I'm so sorry. Straw Hat. Woo-ha-ha, now maybe the government is having a headache or maybe it's a headache. Vlad said, things are really getting more and more interesting. What? Tessero was puzzled, what do you mean? Because Vlad said casually, the Straw Hat's name is Monkey D. Luffy, and the dragon's name is Monkey D. Dragon. No way. Tessero was startled, is that the dragon? Otherwise. Vlad asked back, is there a second dragon in the world? Besides, Straw Hat Luffy and Fire Fist Ace, who was arrested not long ago, are righteous brothers. Ha 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 ha. Tessero laughed, this is so interesting. At such a time, did such a thing happen again? The sea, which was already like a powder keg, was now forcibly stuffed into the powder keg. Gunpowder. Yes, yes, Gorosei, 5 elders, I'm afraid I'm a little troubled now. By the way, Tessero. Vlad suddenly said, one thing. Dash 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 dash. Time moved forward a little, and the battle had not ended before the first few minutes of the call between Tessero and Vlad. Location is Eni's lobby, one of the 3 major institutions of the world government, and the Marine headquarters, the transcendental institution that is juxtaposed with the underwater prison, which ostensibly has the function of judging all criminals in the world. The reason why it is said to have such a function on the surface is that all people who are sent to this place will be directly considered criminals, and they will not need to go through trial at all. They only need to pass through the empty courtroom, and then pass through the gate of justice and sit on the impel down, clippers. On this day, the peaceful Eni's lobby ushered in a riot that has not been seen in many years. A group of pirates rushed in and invaded the Eni's lobby. Now they have rushed into the Tower of Justice, and the battle is hot. Hoo-hoo. The man with the hot steam rising from his body was panting hard, and the expression on the face of the enemy not far away was not good. This guy. What a stupid pirate. On the opposite side of the straw hat, the man wearing a black suit and a dove standing on his shoulder said coldly, how dare you declare war on the government for such a woman? Even among the pirates who are idiots, you guys are still the dumbest kind. Damn. Rubber jet machine gun. If it was when the Straw Hat was on Sky Island before, the fist of the Straw Hat was like the original Maxim machine gun, then now the fist of the Straw Hat is like a Gatling, and the firepower is not at the same level of power, and it is like a violent storm. His opponent, Rob Lucci, blasted past. Aren't you still learning? Lucci coldly whispered, Cami-e. Swish 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 swish. Lucci like a wall. However, what is even more amazing is that Lucci, the power displayed by this man is definitely the power to crush the Straw Hat. Even a fist that is as dense as a rainstorm and a bullet as fast as a bullet can't hurt the man. The so-called Kami-e is a technique to relax the body and feel the airflow to dodge the attack. It belongs to one of Marine Rokushiki. The limit, such a dense fist is far beyond the ordinary Kami-e can dodge. But, with hockey, of course it's different. Named Rob Lucci practiced the power of hockey after being defeated by a woman a few years ago. Chapter 476 Defeat of the Straw Hats. More than 2 years before the Straw Hats rushed to the Eni's lobby, a man named Rob Lucci had suffered a huge defeat, while on a spy mission, in a place called Poke, in a place called Gourmet Island, where CP9's strongest spy met a woman, and then the man suffered the only huge failure in his life. X23 US. Com updates fastest. At the beginning, although the opponent was difficult to deal with, it was not an unbeatable opponent. However, this situation was reversed instantly after the opponent realized hockey's hardening, and the original advantage was instantly beaten to pieces. There was nothing left, and it was so easy to be defeated. It was a shame. It was because of the mercy of the opponent that he survived. Lucci was deeply humiliated by this experience. This kind of thing is a stain that will never be forgotten in a lifetime. At the same time, of course, Lucci also realized that the power named hockey is powerful, and his own power is still not enough. After the battle with the woman named Baby 5, Rob Lucci realized this. He is not strong enough. He wants to practice if you do your own justice. Such power is not strong enough. This view, after learning that the man the woman was following became one of the Shichibukai under the king, became stronger, and he wanted to become stronger. Of course, the CP agency will not lack Haki's training methods. At the same time as the undercover spy, Rob Lucci also started his Haki practice. 2 years have passed, and this man really deserves the title of the strongest man in CP 9,800 years ago. The two-color Haki is already extremely skilled, and the strength is more than a little bit better than the original. Why? The Straw Hat roared. The speed of his fists gradually slowed down, and the steam on his body began to gradually become thinner. This was the first time he applied it to such a high-intensity battle after he developed the second gear. The burden on the body is really great. The duration is not too long. After a meaningless attack, the second block finally began to gradually dissipate. Push into your body to speed up the flow of blood, so as to achieve the acceleration of the body. Rob Lucci's expression remained unchanged, and he said lightly, "It makes perfect use of the characteristics of the Rubber Man. It's really a genius idea, Straw Hat, but isn't this kind of trick a lot of burden on the body? How much will the lifespan be shortened? The sea is like you, or there are as many monsters as you are stronger." The Straw Hat stuck his left thumb in his mouth, and said solemnly, "In order to become One Piece, King of Pirates, and to protect my friends, I must become stronger, stronger than anyone else. Lifespan or something, if you want, I will. Just take it." Quote. 3 blocks. Eyes slammed, the current strongest trick has been used. The second gear is to accelerate the blood, thereby enhancing the speed of the ability. Then the third gear is to pump air into the gaps of the bones to use a giant's strength. Hit tricks. A huge amount of air rushed into the body from the fingers of the left hand of the Straw Hat, and then all gathered on the right hand. The right fist swelled rapidly, and it has completely lost the posture that an ordinary person's fist should have. This is the fist of a giant. Gun of the Giants. The incomparably huge fist had already slammed heavily towards Lucci, which was enough to smash a warship easily. Interesting. There was a sneer on Rob Lucci's face. This kind of trick is really very interesting. He developed his own abilities to a very good level. Even if he was an enemy, Rob Lucci would not hesitate to praise him. But that's about it. Iron block, empty wood modification. Hey! The pitch-black Haki had already covered Lucci's body, and the skin exposed outside the clothes shone with a dim light. The man didn't do any other defensive actions, but just used Haki to cover his body. When the huge fist slammed heavily on Lucci's body, and the terrifying impact directly affected Lucci's body without the slightest obstruction. What? Why? A trace of horror flashed across Straw Hat's face. What the hell is this? Haki, what is it? The fist hit Lucci's body heavily, but, surprisingly, this man, whose huge fist was like a match compared to the Straw Hat, was not blasted out, and a man appeared on the ground. 2 deep ravines. Rob Lucci still put his hands in his trouser pockets, and used his body to hold the giant spear of the Straw Hat abruptly. Hey! One blow did not succeed, and a strong airflow spurted out of the Straw Hat's mouth. This man was like a balloon that was inflated and deflated. The system continued to shrink until it turned into a child with 2 heads. It stopped and fell to the ground. Huh, the power is very good. Lucci said softly, but the side effects seem obvious too. Cough cough. The Straw Hat stood up. The huge head on the smaller body looked a little cute, but there were extremely surprised eyes on his face. It's obvious that he has become stronger. Why? Indeed, if it wasn't for Haki, you guy might be a very troublesome opponent for me. Lucci finally took out his right hand from his pocket. Haki dissipated. The giant spear that had resisted the Straw Hat just now was not hurt in the slightest, and his body began to rise sharply, and the mighty leopard man had appeared in front of the Straw Hat. But, in the world, there are not so many ifs. Straw Hat Luffy. Fight. Me. The Straw Hat suddenly widened his eyes. It's over. PFF'd. Lucci's Shigan finger pistol has pierced the back of the Straw Hat with the sharp claws wrapped around the pitch-black hockey as a guide, and the nails have been revealed from the chest of the Straw Hat's petite body, although it is already much stronger than the Straw Hat, but Lucci will not let go of such a huge loophole exposed by the Straw Hat, showing that look in front of him as really courting death. Crack. Gently threw the Straw Hat hanging from his fingers on the ground. Lucci's face remained calm and did not fluctuate at all. Obviously, he didn't think that defeating such a hairy boy was anything to be happy about. The Ennie's lobby is so fucked up, these guys. Lucci let out a slow breath. Not in a good mood, this boring battle should be over. Moon step, quote. Bang 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 bang. The leopard man stepped on the air and shot out. He was going to end the battle in other parts of the island. This man has no patience to play anymore. Justice, never allow him to be trampled. Chapter 477 The Decision of the Gorosei, 5 Elders. Like Vlad said, the government is really having a headache right now. X23 US. Com updates fastest. On the top of the Red Earth continent, the White Town, the place named Mariajoy, the gathering place of Tenryubito, is also the headquarters of the world government, and it is a well-deserved center of world power. For most people in this world, Mariajoy also means supremacy, like a god. However, anyone with a little knowledge knows that the guys here are just people, not just a group of people standing at the top of this world. Mariajoy, the government office, in a very luxuriously decorated hall, the 5 old men looked a little confused. There is no need to doubt, these 5 old men are the center of power in the world, the apex of the world government, the highest power in the world. The guys codenamed Gorosei, 5 Elders, their real names are rarely known, because they have not been used very much, as long as it is enough to know that they are the Gorosei, 5 Elders, the 5 old men who can easily shake the world. The courage is really not small, worthy of being the son of that dragon. Gorosei, 5 Elders, the bald head with a big beard, said, openly attacking the Ennie's lobby, this is not something normal pirates can do. But shouldn't that kid be thankful for his recklessness? Gorosei, 5 Elders with blonde hair laughed. If he hadn't taken the initiative to bring him to the door, it would be hard to find that kid on the vast sea. So, have you decided yet? Gorosei, 5 Elders with long white beards said solemnly, with a cold tone, what on earth is Luffy going to do with the Straw Hat? It was at this juncture that the war with the Whitebeard pirates was imminent, and now he added a son of a dragon. It would be a pity if it was executed in secret. Gorosei, 5 Elders, holding a knife in his arms, said, after all, he is the son of that dragon. The significance of being a pirate is far less than the significance of this identity. With such an identity, direct execution is too wasteful. Quote. So, a public execution with Roger's son. The bald-headed Gorosei, 5 Elders with a 2-stroke beard said excitedly, the execution of Roger's son and the dragon's son at the same time will be a huge boost to the government's prestige. But the bearded Gorosei, 5 Elders who spoke at the beginning said, if Firefist and the Straw Hat are executed at the same time, it is very likely that they will face the attacks of the Whitebeard pirates and the Revolutionary Army at the same time. Isn't it better? Bald-headed Gorosei, 5 Elders laughed, isn't this better? The trouble with the Revolutionary Army is that they are hidden. We can't find them at all. If we can hang them out this time, it is just the right thing to solve the big problem of the Revolutionary Army. Indeed. Wielding Gorosei, 5 Elders nodded and said, even if we fight against the Whitebeard pirates and the Revolutionary Army at the same time, we have enough combat power in our hands. Just one marine is enough to deal with it, and there are other cards too. Less. The government's forces, even if the Revolutionary Army and the Whitebeard pirates unite, can handle it, right? Don't forget Shichibukai. Blonde Gorosei, 5 Elders said, those guys are an unstable pack of hyenas, but they can still be useful at this time. But the bearded Gorosei, 5 Elders said with some worry, Whitebeard pirates, even if we can deal with the Revolutionary Army, who can guarantee that those guys in the new world will stay on the sidelines? If we have such an opportunity to do things, we will be passive, and our troops will be stretched, but we have no ability to deal with them. Quote. Actually, the bearded Gorosei, 5 elders said, even if we kill the Straw Hats, the Revolutionary Army will not come. Even if the Straw Hat is the son of the dragon, it is only the son of the dragon. This is an affair. The Revolutionary Army is different from the Whitebeard pirates. Those guys will abandon their self-righteous cause for the sake of the leader's son. Shall we fight to the death or to the death? Of course. Knife-wielding Gorosei, 5 elders replied, no. That man Ryu would never make such a stupid decision. He's not the kind of guy who will let everyone's career go to waste because of his personal love, otherwise, he won't be taken seriously by us either. So, without the participation of the Revolutionary Army, the cards in hand are completely enough. Blonde Gorosei, 5 elders laughed, a single Whitebeard pirate can't make a dent. But don't take it lightly. The bearded Gorosei, 5 elders said, there are as many people in the sea as the one who is irreversible because of a fluke, and there should be some preparations. Notify Sengoku that Marine will fully shrink his forces. Let CP0 move first, let that guy go to the new world, and if those monsters do anything, let him act accordingly. Tenryubido, let me explain. That's good. The bearded Gorosei, 5 elders nodded and said, then it's the final decision. Execute Fire Fist Ace and Straw Hat Luffy at the same time. The location is Marineford, the time is scheduled in 2 weeks, and the world will be officially announced in 1 week, no question. Well. The rest of the Gorosei, 5 elders nodded at the same time. The big event that was destined to make waves around the world was confirmed in the discussion between you and me. It is conceivable that the sea has been calm for too long. We'll soon set off a huge wave. By the way, remnant of O'Hara, where is that Nico Robin now? The bearded Gorosei, 5 elders said so suddenly. I'm on the boat to Mariajoy, and I think I'll be back tomorrow. Bald-headed Gorosei, 5 elders said, she's in a boat with that Tom's apprentice, and that guy is worth more than Nico Robin. Is Pluto's blueprint in his hands? Sword-wielding Gorosei, 5 elders sneered, this is really good news. If Hades can be in our hands, those guys can't be so arrogant. Careful. The bearded Gorosei, 5 elders whispered, but it was clear that the old man had an expectant smile on his face. By the way, call Sengoku. Blonde Gorosei, 5 elders said suddenly, let him keep Garp in check, if that doesn't work. Send that bastard to Impel Down to calm down, at least, before the execution is over. I don't want that good grandfather to do anything against justice. So, soon, Marshal Sengoku of Marine Headquarters received a call from Mariajoy. Chapter 478 Marine's Response. Marineford, the headquarters of Marine, one of the 3 major institutions of the world government, is connected to the Enies Lobby, the city that never sleeps, and the ocean currents behind it through the Gate of Justice, and Impel Down. A strong force, at the same time, is of course the strongest force in the world. X23 US. Com updates fastest. In a room in the Marine headquarters, a conversation was being conducted across a phone bug. Such worries are unnecessary, Lord Gorosei, 5 elders. Sengoku tried his best to suppress the anger in his heart, and said, I can vouch for the reputation of my Marine Marshal. Garp is an extremely qualified Marine and will never do anything worthy of justice. This is not necessary at all. Doubt. What's the use of your reputation? The other side of the phone, an angry man's voice came, what can your reputation bring to the government? No one will care about your reputation, I just need, 2 weeks later, there will be no problems with the public execution, and it will go smoothly. Executing Roger's son and Dragon's son, the bloodlines of the 2 most sinful men in the world, all I want is this. Then, defeating the Whitebeard pirates is also something you should consider. You know it's okay to promise me this thing. Sengoku, for this purpose, we will never allow any mistakes. That guy Garp, hiding the fact that Roger's bloodline still exists, and raising him, what do you want me to do? trusting him. Quote. Lord Gorosei, 5 elders. Sengoku held the phone bug in his hand, and his tone gradually became more intense. With all due respect, Garp has been fighting in the front line of the era as the mainstay of Marine as early as the Roger era more than 20 years ago. Roger, Whitebeard, Golden Lion, Ryder, and Garp, who are fighting these monsters for life and death, will betray Marine. Your Excellency Gorosei, 5 elders, you are really overthinking, Garp, but Marine's hero. Of course I know, Garp is Marine's hero, Sengoku, you think. Gorosei, 5 elders were also on fire, and said angrily, if he doesn't have this title, just relying on the dragon, he can still eat senbei with you in the presence of the old god. That bastard should have gone to Impel down to retire. Quote. Are you talking nonsense? Even a man like Sengoku, who is introverted, has no emotions, and obeys the government's orders, is now a little angry. There is no other reason. Although he and Garp often quarrel, but the two people are indeed born and die together. 10 years old comrades in arms, the friendship between the two has long been stronger than diamonds. What does the dragon thing have to do with Garp? That bastard went astray by himself, and has nothing to do with Garp. Garp has always been the hero of Marine, he was, is, and will be in the future. This is never will change. What nonsense are you talking about? Sengoku. Gorosei, 5 elders furious, who do you think you're talking to? Your son is the government's worst enemy, are you kidding me when you tell me that my father has no responsibility at all? The two little devils facing execution are both Garp. His grandson, who was brought up by him, is bound to meet the Whitebeard pirates and possibly the Revolutionary Army. No flaws are allowed. Can you guarantee that Garp's bastard will not be selfish? In short, Lord Gorosei, 5 elders. Sengoku's tone suddenly calmed down, but there was unquestionable determination in his tone. Garp will never do anything against Marine, against the government, or against justice. I can guarantee this. Garp's existence is also an important guarantee for our Marines to win the war. With such a huge fighting force, should we send him to Impel down for nothing? With all due respect, Lord Gorosei, 5 elders, only a fool would do such a thing. What would Marine's soldiers think if they heard such news? The war has not yet begun. We have lost so much, why should we win? Quote. Silence. The other end of the phone was silent for a long time. Okay, Sengoku, I'll trust you for once, but, you promise, that Garp guy won't do anything against justice in the next war. I promise. Sengoku said solemnly, if he really did something against justice, I will personally execute him. That's the best. Gorosei, 5 elders finally said, okay, get ready. The war that hasn't been seen in decades is about to begin. Yes. Crack. There, hung up the phone. Call. Sengoku let out a long sigh of relief. Although his attitude was very firm just now, in fact, talking to Marine's direct leader was still a lot of pressure. Ha 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 ha, saved my life again. Sengoku. Almost instantly, the old man laughed loudly from the other side of Sengoku. Ha ha ha, I was about to be locked in Impel down. Garp, you bastard. Furious, Sengoku threw the poor phone bug in his hand at the old Whitebeard who was sitting on the opposite sofa munching on senbei. Where did you get your face smiling here? Crack. Marine laughed and threw a bag of senbei. Ha 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 ha, thank you so much, Sengoku. Thank you for saying that, don't say it anymore. Sengoku gave Garp a worried look. Garp, you bastard, don't do anything wrong. Ha ha ha. Marine's hero gradually stopped laughing. At the age of 70, the old man who had already retired from the front line lowered his head and said softly, Sengoku, I'm Grandpa. I am, Grandpa. I know, Garp. Sengoku pushed his eyes and said solemnly, but don't forget, Garp, you are more of a Marine. Ha 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 ha. The cheerful old man suddenly raised his head and laughed loudly. Of course, the old man is Marine, from the very beginning, Marine. You understand best. Sengoku smiled, Next is the huge war that Marine hasn't experienced in decades. That guy Whitebeard is not a guy that can be underestimated. Maybe that boy dragon will come back and take a shot. If you don't prepare well, you can't take Zephyr. Also call back. Shichibukai's smashers have to move. The order is issued. The strength of the headquarters alone may not be enough. It is all the Marine bases to gather excellent soldiers. This is a battle that must not be taken lightly. Whitebeard, that man's ability is too dangerous, although the probability is very small. But if that kid Long really gets involved, the trouble will not only increase a little bit. Maybe. Garp said suddenly, the red-haired kid will come too. What? Sengoku was taken aback. Garp, what do you mean? Garp laughed. Luffy's hat is for the redhead, it's Roger's hat. Damn, old bastard, why didn't you say such information earlier? Sengoku said angrily. No, if the red hair pirates are also counted in the hostile power, Gion and Tokikake must also be called back. A war of this scale has far exceeded the original calculation. Gorosei, 5 elders call. Old bastard, this time we 2 old guys are going to play. This time it will be the loser, we can't say no. The biggest war is coming soon. Ha ha ha, that's right, the old man's fist is already itchy. Garp stood up, turned his head and walked towards the door. Sengoku, just talk to Gorosei, 5 elders, old man, go for a walk. Where are you going, Garp? Sengoku exclaimed. Impel down. Garp didn't look back. What, you bastard? Sengoku said angrily, what do you want to do at a time like this? Just. Garp paused, go and see the grandson. Quote. Sengoku was speechless. The biggest war is indeed about to start. At the same time, on the waters where Marine headquarters leads to Mariajoy, a huge warship cruises alone. In the distance, a little red shadow flew over. Chapter 479 Saving Private Robin. A huge warship rode the wind and waves on the sea and galloped towards the Holy Land Mariajoy. This warship that sailed out of Marineford had been on the sea for most of the day, and it was not far from Mariajoy, even, far away. Can see the red Earth continent standing in the sky, Mariajoy is there. X-23 US. Com updates fastest. This is not an ordinary warship. To be precise, this is a prison ship. It is only a warship used to transport sinners with heinous crimes. For example, the 2 people carried on this ship are undoubtedly heinous sinners. People. The bottom position of the battleship is set as a prison cell. In this case, even if the ship sinks, the prisoner will be the most difficult to escape. Even if the ship sinks, a prisoner will never be spared. This is Marine's insistence. Even the bottom layer of the cabin is still bright. In order to prevent the prisoners from making small moves, such a design is necessary. The wide bottom deck, dozens of cells, only 2 cells are in use, and the 2 cells opposite to the passageway are used. Inside, there were a man and a woman. The man has a black-blue aircraft nose, thick arms that look very weird, an open floral shirt on the upper body, and only a pair of blue swimming trunks on the lower body. The thick iron chain tightly wraps him around and connects to the back. It would be really difficult to break free in such a situation. The man's name is Frankie, a repeat offender of the world government. The crime is not a massacre, nor is it a traitor, but a man who has mastered technology that is too dangerous for the government. It is only natural that such a guy will become a prisoner of the government. When a person has mastered technology that is full of threats to the government, even if this person has no such intention, as long as he is not on the side of the government, the world government will inevitably attack him. What's more, the technology in the hands of this man is the legendary ancient weapon, the technology of Hades. This is the technology that the government dreams of. Such a person is not a criminal, who should be a criminal. On the opposite side of this cell, a woman with long black hair fell to the ground. She was not as sleepy as the man on the opposite side. She just had her hands cut behind her back, a handcuff resting on it, and her ankles. The position of a shackle is very obvious. It is connected to the back wall by an iron chain. The handcuffs made by seastone are far more effective than iron chains for those who are capable. The woman's name is Nicole Robin, North Blue, a survivor of O'Hara, a woman who has mastered the knowledge of forbidden ancient texts, and is currently the only person in the world who can interpret the text of history. Of course, this woman is the only one who has reached Laugh, the only one other than Tail, next One Piece king of pirates, who has the potential to unravel the blank 100-year history. Such people, of course, are absolutely intolerable to the government, and the name of repeat offenders is well deserved. Both of them were arrested by CP9 in the recent Seven Waters incident, because of Nico Robin, who happened to be met, and because of a misunderstanding. They wanted to protect themselves from the Straw Hat Pirates who were framed to attack Iceberg. In the recent Enies Lobby incident, these two people watched helplessly as the Straw Hat Gang and the Frankie family who came to rescue them were wiped out, which was a very sad experience. The Marines came and went without leaving the slightest gap. Someone was monitoring them at any time. The government didn't want these two guys to escape because of a little omission. Nico Robin's eyes were a little dull. She stared blankly at the ground in front of her without saying a word. Opposite her, Frankie wanted to speak, but because of too much nonsense, her mouth had already been blocked by Marine, humming. Chi-Chi was speechless. Both of them are desperate. The Battle of Enies Lobby has shattered all their hopes. The fiasco of the Straw Hats makes them never have a little luck again, and being taken to Mariajoy by the prison ship is almost their final end. They thought so. However, fate is such a wonderful thing. When the two people were full of hope, the savior who appeared was beaten to pieces by the enemy, and then, when the two people were desperate, the real savior appeared. Oh! Above the sky, Vlad flapped his wings, looked at the huge warship below with great interest, and exclaimed in admiration, "It's really good. Marine really has a lot of money. A warship of this size is really admirable." Marine warship like the prison ship. There can be a comparison. In the original work, when the Enies Lobby time ended, the Going Merry had a relationship with the Marine warship. On a par. Really, it can give me trouble. Vlad complained. It doesn't matter to other people, but Nico Robin and Frankie are absolutely not allowed to be given to the world government. As soon as Vlad knew the news that Nico Robin and Frankie were taken away to Mariajoy, he rushed over to this side non-stop. There was no way. These two people were too important. Frankie, of course, needless to say, this man has mastered the manufacturing technology of the extremely vicious battleship Pluto. Although the blueprint was taken by Vlad, it is strange that Frankie has not seen the blueprint after he has kept the blueprint for so many years. Right. Vlad will never allow the government to get the drawings of Hades, even if Frankie is a tough guy. It's not that Vlad doesn't believe him, but because Frankie's subordinates are still locked in Impel Down. It is too easy to threaten him. Frankie, no doubt a man of temperament. Besides, that man helped him a lot. The Platinum Deleg is his work. Vlad really likes this ship. Besides, he secretly took other people's drawings. How can he help others? A busy one. This time the rescue operation is actually this guy as the main target. The second person, Nicole Robin. Vlad couldn't just watch the woman fall into the hands of the government, for the very simple reason, Nicole Robin taught Vlad the knowledge of ancient writing. If he told the government, for Vlad, that's really bad. The existence of a loner like Nico Robin who knows ancient texts has already made the government sleepless. If the government knows, Vlad's strength, a guy with both power and ambition mastered the reading of ancient texts, and Vlad did not want to know what the government would do. Vlad did not trust Nicole Robin. Although this woman gave him a good impression, it was not enough for him to trust him. "You're out of luck, guys." Vlad smiled, his wings slapped heavily, and his body fell rapidly. The target was the prison ship below. Boom. Chapter 480 Bulldog. The fiery red meteor fell from the sky, except that it did not have a long tail inflammation. It was like a real meteor. Hello. Above the huge warship, the young Marine soldier raised his head in surprise. The expression on his face changed again and again. What is that? That is meteor. What? Really, what is that? After this exclamation, almost everyone on the deck raised their heads, and then they saw the red meteor flashing red and falling from the sky. "Come this way." "Then what is?" "Dodge, dodge," he shouted hoarsely. "Fall down now. Dodge." Marine soldiers at the stern shouted, and the red meteor fell straight toward the bow. Boom. The smoke and dust rose violently, and the red meteor bombarded heavily on the bow. The strong impact made this giant warship undulate like a seesaw. The bow was heavily pressed into the sea, and the sea was almost full over the side of the ship. Marine headquarters on this warship could not be spared from such a shock. Wow. The end of the warship, which had been pushed up, slapped heavily on the sea, the waves surged into the sky, and the huge shaking swept in again. The guy was directly shaken into the sea. "What the hell is this?" Marine with a cape on his shoulders said in surprise. "Is it really a shooting star?" Just in front of him, the smoke gradually dissipated, and a huge pothole appeared in front of him. The thick and hard upper deck of the warship was smashed through, and the thing that fell from the sky had fallen below the deck. "What the hell is going on?" Marines on the deck looked stunned. Then, suddenly, black smoke filled the air, floating from nowhere, and soon, the misty black smoke had already tightly wrapped the big ship, and the sun in the sky was completely covered. Extremely a dim black enveloped the deck. "This is..." Marine, who was sweating coldly on his face, quickly stood up, his face full of seriousness. "Enemy attack. Pay attention to vigilance. Battle preparations. Enemy attack. The enemy is on the lower deck. Find him. Contact headquarters. Spread the word. Then, everyone, ready for battle." At this time, as long as they are not fools, they will know that such an abnormality is because someone has attacked this ship. At the same time, at the bottom of the prison ship, where Nicole, Robin and Frankie are being held, the sudden vibration caused the two of them to roll on the ground in embarrassment. The unfortunate Frankie slammed his head directly into the railing. Fortunately, his head was still very iron, and he did not receive any damage. Hey! Robin and Frankie were not the only prisoners tumbling on the ground, but also Marine soldiers patrolling and monitoring the two of them on the ground floor. Frankie and Robin were still locked in chains. Marine soldiers were patrolling well. He fell to the ground in an instant and didn't react at all. Bang! Then, the ceiling burst open, and a shadow jumped down from the upper deck. "Hey, really, let me find it for a while." The person's tone was lazy, and it sounded as sleepy as if he hadn't slept for a week, which is of course, after all, this guy was disturbed when he really wanted to sleep, and then spent a few days without sleep. It is only natural that those who fly over will be very sleepy. His right hand hangs down naturally, but something very unnatural happened in his hand. Black smoke spread out from his hand, like flowing water, seeping out from the gap of the boat. It can be known that the black mist spreading from his hands wrapped the ship. The name of the visitor is Ferdinando Vlad, from Sky Island. "You are..." Nicole Robin's eyes widened suddenly. She really didn't expect to see Vlad in this place. What the hell is going on? At the same time, Frankie, who fell to the ground like a caterpillar, raised his head with difficulty, and his eyes were also very excited. "Yo, we meet again, Nicole Robin." Vlad greeted leisurely, then turned to look at Frankie on the other side, and smiled as well, and then, "Long time no see, Frankie. It looks very embarrassing." Who? Marine, who was rolling on the ground in embarrassment, finally stood up. The long knife was unsheathed, and the musket was loaded. No matter how Vlad appeared, it was an intruder. "Do you want to take the prisoner away?" "Yeah, Marine." Vlad smiled. "That would be troublesome, and it would be quite bad if the government knew what I did now, so..." Woo! The black wave swept out, instantly shrouding the Marines in front of them. After the black wave passed, these Marine soldiers who wanted to stop Vlad had disappeared, and all of them had been attracted to another space by the gravity of darkness. It was probably crushed to pieces. This. Nicole Robin's eyes widened, and some didn't understand what was going on. As we all know, the ability of the King Shichibukai Fire Dragon Vlad is mythical, fire dragon fruit, so it is called fire dragon, but, what was the ability that Vlad showed just now? The black smoke, no matter how you look at it, is not the ability of the dragon fruit. No matter how you look at it, it is completely irrelevant to the word fire dragon. What is going on with such an ability? This guy, is a dual ability. Is such a thing really possible? Nicole Robin is a little messy, and even a man as well informed as this is a little bit confused now. Okay, the two of you, the prison play is over, and now it's only time for liberation. Vlad smiled, come with me. I came to you on purpose. Yeah. Vlad turned his head in surprise. Go, where are you going? Such a somewhat muffled man's voice came from behind Vlad. These two are serious offenders of the government, where can they go? Even the ends of the earth will not have a place for them. Vlad turned his head and saw the man walking down the stairs with a long sword in hand. Oh. It turns out to be Vice Admiral from Marine Headquarters, Fighting Dog, Mr. Doberman. Mobile users please visit M. Read, a better reading experience.